What is going on, guys? Thank you so very much for joining us right here on Tuesday night. This is episode 55 of Tuesday Night Titans. I am your host, JD from New York, as always, joined by my co-host and very good friend, the Solid Monster, back in his natural habitat. What's going on, brother?
It's good to be off the road. Good to be back home.
Oh, you mean to tell me you didn't stop by Stamford, Connecticut, man, and give Bruce Pritchard a nice welcome?
No, I don't want to be within 5 feet of Bruce, but I did pass by WWE headquarters. You can't miss it. Have you passed by the building when you're driving back and forth in that direction?
The old one, yes, because I have a very good friend that lives in Greenwich. Not the new one, though.
Okay, well, the new one you can't miss. They got logos everywhere. It's a much bigger, I'm sure, very nice building. I didn't see the big championship belt that apparently is right outside the building, but you can't miss it as you're driving down the highway there. So, no, I did not take a meeting with Bruce. I don't know what Bruce is up to, nor do I care, but it's a very nice building.
Well, we'll see Bruce on the new documentary dropping tomorrow for WrestleMania 40.
That's right. Took a few months, but we're finally getting it an hour before Dynamite. They're dropping it on YouTube.
Yeah, I'm sure that was done. Just willy-nilly. They had no idea what was going on.
They could have dropped it at 8 p.m. So they did. They're like, all right, you know what? We'll give an hour buffer here. We'll drop it at 7. Have they said how long it is, though? Is it an hour? Is it 2 hours?
No, I would say it bleeds into about 9 o'clock. I would say it's about 2 hours, yeah.
It has to be. Yeah. I mean, they talked about there being so many hours of footage for them to go through. I would imagine they can get at least 2 hours.
Hey, listen, man, as long as Tony Khan has Sheldon Cooper, it's all good. It's all good in the hood.
That's his MVP.
I mean, he's one of the pillars. You know, forget Darby Allin. And Sheldon Cooper's right up there.
There you go. He's the biggest star in the company.
Yeah. Listen, those lead-ins are a big deal, supposedly. We are going to talk AEW tonight. We just got through the Forbidden Door. It is now closed until at least January, when New Japan has their own Forbidden Door.
Closed. The Forbidden Door is open every week.
Well,
what are you talking about closed? We're going to see New Japan talent and probably CMLL talent on television every other week.
Yeah, we'll see Hachicero on Collision in 2 weeks.
Sure. Maybe we can get Mina back.
I hope so. If there's one to walk through the Forbidden Door and stay, it's her.
I hope so. She's great. I love Mina.
Who doesn't love Mina? I know the chat loves Mina. We will be talking about a little Mina later. We'll talk about Forbidden Door. What a polarizing show, I would say, Jason. I mean, listen, AEW does great pay-per-views. Tony Khan is Mr. Pay-Per-View. We'll get into it a little bit later, but the weakest of the 3 Forbidden Door shows with the best main event of all 3 shows that happened on Sunday with Swerve and Will Ospreay. We got major news on the situation that was that match and how it came to be and what the thought process was. Just dropped by Fightful and Sean Ross Sapp. We'll talk about that a little bit later. That was dropped about a half an hour ago. So we'll get into that news. We'll talk Money in the Bank. We'll talk Bloodline. I know you guys were wondering where I was on Friday. Jason was live on Friday talking about that tremendous Bloodline segment. We will talk about that together. I will give my thoughts on that for the first time. I was with family in Delaware on Friday and Saturday, so we will go over that. And we will talk Sasha Banks, or Mercedes, I should say. She apparently has creative control in AEW. And apparently a meeting has happened between her and Shane McMahon that people once again are blowing out of proportion. I don't know why. We will discuss that.
It's the internet.
I know.
It's the internet. Actually, you know what surprised me about that? You know who reported that? You know who broke that news?
PW Insider.
And that's a legitimate news source. So it's not like some fly-by-night operation there. I was surprised. But, you know, it's very interesting that well, we'll get into it, but like very, very specific about what was discussed. That I'm like, I wonder how they got that information or who they got that information from. Like, it's so specific. But yeah, people blowing things out of proportion. I mean, I'm shocked. I'm shocked, I tell you.
Maybe Shane went to Mike Johnson and said, "Hey, I met with Mercedes at LaGuardia Airport. Run this."
I don't know what he's doing these days. So maybe he's itching for a job. I don't know.
We'll see. I know you don't want him there. I won't mind him there, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. But the usual spiel, guys. You guys know where to find us. Please hit that subscribe button to both of our channels. Down below, I linked Jason's channel down below in the description. You guys know what to do with mine. Hit that subscribe button. If you guys want to follow Jason on social media, please, again, everything is in the description below. He is on Twitter. I wish we weren't, but it's needed in the days of content creation. And please make sure you guys hit that thumbs up. We got 1,300 people and growing in here right now. Before we even start, thank you guys. Hit that thumbs up. Let's try for 1,000 likes. Helps out the video tremendously. And super chats are always open. Let's hang out at the end of the show with some nice cold beverages, guys. Get them on in. We'll hang out and answer any questions, comments, or concerns that you may have about this week's big WWE AEW news. Jason, start us off, man. What do you want to talk about?
Let's talk about Raw last night, and then we can sort of jump into Money in the Bank. I think we should start there because that's the big event coming up this weekend. And we didn't know coming into last night who would fill the final 2 spots in the 2 Money in the Bank matches, and now we do. So now we have a complete card. So if you want to talk about the 2 qualifying matches last night, I'll tell you what I thought of that main event last night. Fucking fantastic. I was all week long, once I knew what the match was going to be, you knew it was going to be impossible for it to be anything other than great. And they delivered exactly what I was hoping that they would deliver. We had a physical main event, great wrestling. We had some great near falls. And we also had the right man going over and the man I was expecting, which is Drew McIntyre, officially going to Money in the Bank.
If there's one thing that WWE does not have a shortage of, it's great European talent. I'll tell you that right now.
Oh.
Sheamus is fantastic. Drew McIntyre is unbelievable. And Ilya Dragunov is fucking phenomenal. So that main event was great. I could do without the 2 commercial breaks in between, but, I mean, that's just a common thing every week.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing you can do about that. The only thing that would have made it better is you give them 20 minutes on a PLE, and then you can just do it uninterrupted. But I'm not going to quibble about that. We had a great match last night. The only thing missing, you want to make it a fatal 4-way and throw Gunther in there. That's about the only thing. I mean, that would have been incredible. And maybe one day we'll get that. But it's amazing because this was not even supposed to be the match. The match last night was supposed to be Drew McIntyre, Sheamus, and Ludwig Kaiser. And we found out last night that Kaiser did suffer broken ribs in his match with Bron Breakker the week before. And I like Kaiser. I'm not saying it would have been a bad match, but I think the match got a big upgrade by putting Dragunov in there.
Yeah. Take nothing away from Kaiser. I said this last night in regards to Kaiser. WWE could have easily kept him off television and not give us a diagnosis on what was wrong with him, but they had him cut a great promo and a vignette that really kind of kept him in the mix. So I don't remember when WWE, did that last, or if they did that and normalized that. It was great to see him last night. I don't know what you said on your end, but to see him just cut a promo and acknowledge that he had broken ribs, he'll be back. I thought that was a great add-in to the show last night.
I was just happy to see him, active on the show in some way. I didn't know what the nature of the injury was. It looked like he was holding his ribs. But then there was some talk about how he landed on his arm on an overhead suplex. Maybe he broke his arm. So I didn't know exactly what the injury was. And not that broken ribs is a walk in the park, but I thought maybe it was something worse. Maybe he tore something and then he's on the shelf for 6 to 9 months. So I got the impression here that he's probably not going to be gone for very long, and that's a good thing. And maybe they can get him back in time for SummerSlam, because that's going to tie into part of my Money in the Bank predictions when we get into that.
Yeah, and like you said, the right guy won in that main event. Drew McIntyre, he did defeat Sheamus and Ilya Dragunov in a great main event to close Monday Night Raw last night, and he attaches his name to the field of 6, which is complete here. Jey Uso, Carmelo Hayes, Andrade, Chad Gable, LA Knight, and Drew McIntyre will be your men's Money in the Bank ladder match. And I don't know if you want to get into the predictions now, Jason, and start off with this one. I'll let you start us off here as far as where you see this match going, who you think's going to come out on top and be the 2024 Mr. Money in the Bank.
Yeah, let's start with that, because I actually have that as opening the show. If we have to predict match order here, I would open the show with this. And I almost think if this goes the way that I think it might go, they almost have to open the show with this. Now, I got blowback when I made this prediction, because there are some people who don't like the idea that I'm proposing here. But you've got Drew McIntyre, Jey Uso, and LA Knight. You could make an argument for any of those three. Andrade is not winning Money in the Bank. Chad Gable, I love Chad Gable. Chad Gable, I don't think is winning Money in the Bank either. He's preoccupied with the Wyatt 6 stuff.
So the idea that you brought to the table with the Intercontinental Championship and him winning and cashing out on Gunther at SummerSlam, that's now off the table for you.
Off the table.
Okay.
Just based on developments over the last couple of weeks,
Okay.
I just don't see that as being very likely. Would love it for Chad, because he could use a big win. But yeah, I think that's off the table. And Carmelo Hayes has no shot. I just would be shocked if he won Money in the Bank. LA Knight, you didn't see SmackDown on Friday. I mean, you went back and watched it, but you didn't see SmackDown live. So LA Knight got into Money in the Bank, which surprised me a little bit. I thought he and Logan would cancel each other out in their qualifier, and they might send Escobar into the match. Obviously, Knight's a much bigger name than Escobar is. But based on the way it went down, and I'm curious if you would agree on this, it seems pretty clear to me Logan Paul is going to do something on this show to make sure that LA Knight does not win that Money in the Bank briefcase.
I would say you are correct. Yes, I don't want to cut you off. I will say you're correct, but that is the one situation that I have an issue with this match. I think a lot of people are expecting a lot of that particular aspect to kind of rear its ugly head in this match. A lot of interference in this match is what I think people are thinking of.
I wouldn't say a lot of interference, but yes, you are, and this is what I was going to get to, because there are other stories playing out where we could see other people doing a run-in in this match. But I think it's all but guaranteed. I would be very surprised if Logan Paul does not show up and do something to screw over LA Knight, whether he pushes him off the ladder or they brawl to the back, whatever it is. Because of that, Drew McIntyre is going to win Money in the Bank. I have him picked to win the briefcase. And what has he been saying on TV? He said it again at the end of the show last night. He's going to walk out of Toronto as the World Heavyweight Champion. This is not a surprise. He's already made it clear that if he wins the briefcase, he's going to cash in that very same night. That's why I think you need to open the show with this match. And they don't have to close with the World Heavyweight title match, although in that situation they probably should. You could always go second to last, but you got to open with this. I think Drew wins the briefcase, and you don't have CM Punk getting involved here for the reason that you just mentioned. You don't want to run the same angle twice in one match. So if somebody is going to get screwed over, you do it once. You can't do it twice. I just don't think you do it twice in the same match. So either CM Punk gets involved or Logan Paul gets involved, but not both. And I think it's going to be Logan Paul. So I think Drew ends up grabbing the briefcase.
I like that. I said that last night, and I agree. Drew McIntyre winning Money in the Bank is the only thing that makes sense here. And if Punk was to interfere in this match, I feel like, yeah, he could screw him out of winning the contract, but what would be more fulfilling for CM Punk? For him to screw McIntyre over in this match and not have him win the briefcase, or have him win the briefcase and then fuck him in the end and take the world championship away from him again, which would be consistent because at WrestleMania, screwed him out of the world title. Clash of the Castle, screwed him out of the world title. Let's make it a trifecta. Money in the Bank, let's screw him out of the world championship. So It kind of goes in line with what we've seen so far, and I like that. As far as Drew McIntyre, Jason, this is a question that I have thought about today and in the lead up taking the notes for the show. I know a lot of people want to see the Money in the Bank briefcase kind of, I guess, resuscitated after the Vince era. I know Vince didn't really treat it with much respect, and it got to be a tired gimmick in the Vince administration. If McIntyre wins the briefcase and then cashes in and fails, and they waste the men's briefcase like this to tell a story and have it blow over in one night, does that devalue the Money in the Bank briefcase? How are you feeling about that?
No, and this is what I was going to talk about, because I pitched this, and there were people who were very upset and said, well, that's a terrible idea because what a waste of the briefcase. You're going to have him win it. He's going to fail on the same night, and it's just a complete waste. I don't look at it that way because to me, if it fits the story and the story makes sense, then it's totally acceptable. We had Damian Priest running around with the briefcase for almost a year. He held on to that briefcase for the majority of the year. It's okay every now and then to have a cash-in, let's say a failed cash-in, on the same night. We've had people cash in on the same night, usually successfully. Have we ever had a failed cash-in on the same night? I don't remember.
I don't remember either.
Yeah, I don't know. We've had failed cash-ins. I just don't know if there's ever been one the same night. I know Kane won the title at the same night. Liv Morgan beat Ronda, I think, the same night. I'm of the opinion that Money in the Bank is a tired concept. I know why they keep it around. It's still a very popular show. A lot of fans still like it. I think it's tired. I think it is used as a crutch far too often. So that's kind of the attitude I'm coming at it with, which is going to differ from what some other people may think. I don't have an issue with it. And there were people crying about it and like, oh, what a waste. Look, they got 2 briefcases. You got a men's and you got a women's. So even if you burn through the men's one in one night, you still have another briefcase. You can still have somebody carrying a briefcase around for at least a few weeks. It's not like there's not going to be any Money in the Bank cases, coming out of that show. I don't think it devalues it. It fits the story. McIntyre, I mean, you want to talk about something that would send him over the edge. And McIntyre and Punk is one of the top 3 stories in the company right now. So I don't have an issue using that to add even more fire to the match and the rivalry between him and Punk going into SummerSlam. I don't mind it. And the people who are upset about that and are complaining about it, I think are being short-sighted. It's not a big deal if it plays out that way.
I agree. If there is, and I don't want to say that Triple H is better than this one or that one, but Triple H, typically he's got his finger on the pulse and he does dabble in long-term booking. I don't know how long out he has plans for. I think getting rid of the briefcase in this case would probably do best for him. I don't know if he has plans for any of these men if they were to hold the briefcase for another 12 months like Damian Priest. I honestly think it's an albatross around anybody's neck. So getting rid of it, honestly, would probably free him up creatively to be a little bit more free. And I appreciate that. I don't want to see another person hold it for another 12 months. It gets to a point where, you get to 6 or 7 months and it's like, Jesus Christ, take the fucking thing off of him already.
Right. And in the case of Priest, I mean, how many times did he try to cash in and he ended up looking like a fool? I mean, there were times where you would watch the show and the champion would be vulnerable and you'd be yelling at the TV like, hey, you idiot, like cash in. Why are they not having him? It just makes him look like a fool. So you run into that also. So again, I don't have an issue with it. If you look at the people who are in this match, let's game this out. Jey Uso, right? Does Jey Uso need Money in the Bank?
Jey Uso does not need Money in the Bank. I think we're all factoring him into the Bloodline story at some way or in some way towards the end of the year. So no.
Right. And so if the objective here is to cash in to win the world title on either Raw or SmackDown, I just don't see a spot for him to do that. I don't see Jey Uso winning the world title. I just not anytime soon, especially if they're going to get that belt on Gunther soon. Yeah. He ain't getting that title. So Jey Uso does not need the briefcase. It would be a big win for him. But he doesn't need it. LA Knight, again, we know where he's headed. He's headed toward the U.S. title. He's headed towards Logan Paul at SummerSlam. He doesn't need the Money in the Bank briefcase. And then you get into Carmelo Hayes. Does he need it? He doesn't need it. Andrade's not getting it. Gable is the only other one I would look at and go, okay, I could see Gable winning it, carrying it around for a while, teasing, cashing it. He's really the only other one who I could look at and say, all right, that I can see. But they're not going to do it. I don't think that it's not in the cards for him this year.
No,
again, if Drew wins it, if Drew wins it and burns it in one night, it fits the story with Punk perfectly. 3 times in 1 year, he will have screwed this man out of the World Heavyweight Championship. And at that point, you don't even have to do much else. As long as Punk gets cleared, you're just biding time until you get to SummerSlam, because what else can you do after that? Like you've already built this up so much. These men are going to want to murder each other. But I just feel like that right there is what would put it over the top. And then you've got one of your co-main events all set up for SummerSlam.
I like it. I totally agree that McIntyre is going to win it. And I agree that burning through it for the sake of this story, which is fantastic so far, it doesn't bother me whatsoever. My other question here before we move on to where we think McIntyre will land in that same night for the World Championship. Chad Gable, do we see the Wyatt Six in some way, shape, or form ruin Chad Gable's Money in the Bank hopes here? Or is that a little bit too much and he just kind of goes the way of Carmelo Hayes and Andrade, has a great showing, and none of that spookiness or that Wyatt Six dynamic doesn't really harm him here?
I'm a little torn on this, because to go back to what we just talked about, you don't want to have too many people interfering in the same match. I don't like the idea of running the same angle in the same match, but I could see Nikki Cross, let's say, maybe the lights flicker. Gable's on the ladder, right? He's about to climb up and pull down the title, and the lights go out or the lights flicker. And then we see Rowan in the rabbit mask, or we see Nikki Cross in her mask, and there's some fog, and it scares Chad Gable and he runs off. Something like that, not where he gets beat up necessarily. I could see that, because I think Gable, it's amazing in the span of 2 weeks how his plans, like in my mind, his plans for SummerSlam are so different than where I was expecting him to be. I was expecting him, again, possibly to win Money in the Bank or to still be in the Intercontinental title picture. Now I look at his future and I think we're probably going to get Gable and Uncle Howdy, or we're going to get Gable and Alpha Academy against the Wyatt Six at SummerSlam. So yeah, I mean, I could see them.
Either way, it's a death sentence creatively for him. He ain't winning.
Well, I wouldn't call it a death sentence, but
you know what I mean. I mean, I meant it kind of theatrically in the way that he's been.
Okay, all right. No, because I still have people who are like, oh, he's so buried. Like, look at what they're doing with him. He's so buried.
I had some fucking idiot yesterday say, oh, I hope Chad Gable enjoys his big money contract. And I went back and said exactly what we said last week. The fucking guy's had 4 segments the last 3-4 weeks.
Multiple segments. Every week he's in multiple segments on the show. I mean, he's got a lot of prime real estate on Raw every Monday night. So, yeah, buried is not the word to use for Chad Gable. Do I wish he would have gotten that IC title? Yeah. I wish he had, but he's involved in one of the top angles right now on the show. So yeah, that wouldn't surprise me if they make their presence felt during that match.
McIntyre wins Money in the Bank. He promised to cash in. This opens the show. I do agree with you there. And then Damian Priest and Seth Rollins. Does that end the show? Do we see that being the last match on the show, even though we have Cody and his gang of friends against the Bloodline?
Yeah, well, Cody's not defending his title, so there's no need, unless Roman Reigns is coming back at the end of this show, and I don't think he is. There's no need for that to headline. I think that Seth Rollins is back. It's his first match back. It's a World Heavyweight title match, which they just headlined with in Scotland. And if I'm right, and they're going to save Punk for the end, then I think you want to close the show with that.
I agree. Damian Priest, Seth Rollins, World Heavyweight Championship. Seeing that we already predicted McIntyre to cash in here, come to the end of the night, how do you see this playing out? Do we get both guys down and McIntyre picking his spot to make this a triple threat match, or does Punk get in there? And I don't know how you work this out. It could be a little tricky. I said last night that McIntyre would get in there and pick his spot. Both guys would be down. He thinks he's going to win the World Championship. And then Seth Rollins ends up taking advantage of whatever CM Punk helps him with. And Rollins wins the championship. How do you see this thing playing out?
I think it's going to play out the way that it did at WrestleMania when Rollins cashed in. So I think the cash-in will happen during the match at a moment where both men are down.
Yeah.
And so it turns into a triple threat. And I think when McIntyre is setting up for the Claymore, or maybe he hits it, that's when Punk will show up. And Punk is going to distract him. He's going to, screw him over in some way. And I think that in the end, not only is he going to screw Drew McIntyre, but he's also going to end up screwing, in effect, Seth Rollins, because Damian Priest is going to retain the World Heavyweight title. Probably by pinning McIntyre again, like he did in Scotland. So that's where you and I differ. I've gone back and forth on this. A couple weeks ago, I thought, with these extra stipulations, which we should probably talk about that. Not only is the World Heavyweight title on the line, but Rollins added 2 stiffs. Yeah. One being that if he loses, he can never again challenge for the title so long as Damian Priest is champion. It's so fucking ridiculous because, okay, so if Rollins loses, he can't challenge for the title for a whole 4 weeks, right? Because Priest is not making it out of the summer as the World Heavyweight Champion. Either SummerSlam or Bash in Berlin. Like, there's no chance of that. If Priest loses, then he has to leave the Judgment Day. And you mentioned the story. You enjoyed the story last night, the whole Judgment Day thing as that has progressed. I can't see Damian Priest ultimately leaving the Judgment Day because he lost a match and the stipulation said he has to leave. I just think things are going to play out the way they do with him and Finn Balor, either on this show or at SummerSlam. And it's going to tie into that. Or Liv Morgan is going to manipulate him out of the group in some way because she's got everybody in that group except Rhea wrapped around her finger. Priest is the only one who sees right through her and isn't taking any shit from her. So maybe she can, continue her mind games, and ultimately he'll be booted out of the group. I don't think it happens because, I lost to Seth Rollins. So that's why I came back into the Priest camp and have him winning and not Rollins. But that's interesting, again, because if Punk screws over Drew, he would effectively also be screwing over Rollins in a way, and then you can eventually come back to that. We were going to get that match at WrestleMania this year. We never did. We still have to get that match at some point.
So the reason why I said Rollins, and maybe I'm just a stickler for perfection and having things kind of come off the best that they could be. I know the rumor is Cody and Solo at SummerSlam. I don't necessarily want to see that.
Oh, get ready.
I'll get back to that in a second. I know why that may be happening. You know why that may be happening. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I say Cody and Solo is kind of blah, very mid. And then we get Damian Priest and Gunther. Take nothing away from Damian Priest. I think he's a very, very good pro wrestler. I don't necessarily look at that as being a SummerSlam World Championship match. If we were going to get Cody and Solo, I much rather WWE kind of offset that by giving us Rollins and Gunther and giving us a legit World Championship match that kind of feels like a World Championship match. Cody and Solo doesn't feel that way. So you're saying that Priest is going to walk into SummerSlam as the champion against Gunther, and then we're going to get Cody and Solo, and you feel like Cody and Solo is going to offset both of them kind of being mid-championship matches because Roman's coming back at SummerSlam, and he's probably going to interject himself in that Solo-Cody match.
No, I wouldn't say it's going to offset it. I'm with you. I think Rollins and Gunther is the more marquee of the two matches. I just don't think it's going to play out that way. And I don't know what Seth Rollins does then. I haven't figured out what his role in SummerSlam would be if it works out that way. But yes, I mean, if the idea is that Roman Reigns, and possibly Paul Heyman, and maybe even Jimmy Uso, if they're going to return at the end of that main event or at the end of the show, that's all anybody is going to be talking about when SummerSlam is over. I mean, let's be honest here. That's what everybody is going to be talking about. And that's going to be the big moment coming out of it. So I almost think for that reason, and you're forgetting the other big match, which is Drew McIntyre and CM Punk, you could legitimately call it a triple main event. I look at that almost as being the main event, honestly. That's going to be the main event. It may not close the show, but you're going to have that match as well, which a lot of people are looking forward to. So I think it's okay if you end up having, these title matches that aren't necessarily marquee. Well, because look, if it were up to me, if I were booking this, we'd get Rollins and Gunther, we'd get Cody and Randy Orton, right? But we're not getting Cody and Randy Orton, not yet. I don't think. So I think having the big Roman return at the end of the show would kind of eat up a lot of the oxygen, and I don't think anybody is going to be bitching about the fact when that show is over that, we only got, Damian Priest and Gunther. And I also think, I kind of feel bad for Damian Priest in a way because, and I'm not saying you're wrong when you say that, because Rollins is just more established. They teased that match at the beginning of the year. It does feel like it would be the bigger of the two matches, but Priest, I think, has done everything right so far, at least in the ring when it comes to his matches and, carrying himself as a world champion. His promos are not the best. They're kind of bland.
No, his backstage segments are a lot better than his in-ring promo.
Yeah, I mean, the interactions with the Judgment Day and stuff and the way that story is played out, I think that's really good. There's just those in-ring promos are very vanilla. There's just not a lot to them. But I think his in-ring work with Jey Uso, his in-ring work with Drew McIntyre, and his TV matches have all been top-notch. And I still feel like he doesn't get enough credit for that. And maybe they want to set him up for a really big match at SummerSlam. And what better opponent to put him in the ring with and, have him go out there and have a great match with than Gunther. So, yeah, I see him walking out of Money in the Bank with that title. It just feels, even the split with him and Finn, which clearly they're building towards that.
Yep.
It would feel too sudden if it happened next weekend. I feel like that's SummerSlam.
Yeah, I now that I hear you kind of play it out, we're thinking it out here. He's also a tag team champion, is Finn. So him and Damian Priest, which is probably a lot of people's direction for SummerSlam, being that he is the tag team champion, probably doesn't even make sense right now. And then Seth Rollins on that same front, you want to give him the championship only to have him drop it a month later to Gunther. And then I'm thinking, well, if Gunther beats Seth Rollins at SummerSlam already, and Rollins is probably at this point the only other name that could be viable for Gunther in the short term here coming out of SummerSlam, why beat him so suddenly? So I feel like that's going to be a match that Gunther and Rollins have, or they revisit that after SummerSlam. That's going to be his first major test as champion, Gunther, Seth Rollins. So why would you burn through that at SummerSlam?
Yeah, that's a fair point. And, hopefully eventually we would get the match with Gunther and Dragunov, which they also kind of teased. So to me, it would just make more sense maybe to save that for after SummerSlam. And then you can get a couple of matches out of Rollins and Gunther, too.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the way that's all playing out. And, again, I'm super excited about it all. There's just a lot of different directions that the company can go in. And this is probably the first Money in the Bank in several years that I'm genuinely excited about, just because of these stories that we're seeing on television. Shifting gears to the ladies, we got Io Sky, Chelsea Green, Lyra Valkyria, Tiffany Stratton, Naomi, and Zoe Stark, who qualified last night on Monday Night Raw to the negativity of online fans. Everybody wanted Dakota Kai. I gave my best explanation as to why Dakota Kai should not have won, and Zoe was the right choice here. But as far as these 6 ladies go, Jason, I know you and I are both on Tiffany Stratton here, and I don't really think there's anybody else in this match, honestly, besides a very, very, very far dark horse in Chelsea Green, just because of the Canadian connection. Tiffany Stratton's going to be Miss Money in the Bank, and it just suits her. And when she cashes in, that's going to be a whole nother topic of discussion. But I think as far as Saturday is concerned, she's walking out Miss Money in the Bank.
So you're in agreement with me now about Lyra not having any real shot. Yeah, you were a few weeks ago, you were like, well, so you think Lyra has no shot? And I was like, yeah, Lyra has no shot. So now you're coming around to the idea that Lyra's not winning Money in the Bank.
No, she's stuck in that mid-card feud with Damage Control, which is why I said Dakota Kai should not be in the Money in the Bank ladder match, because it doesn't make sense. Let's finish that first. Let's go, Tiffany.
See, I disagree with you on 2 things. First of all, I was mildly surprised that Dakota didn't win last night. Zoe was in Money in the Bank last year, so it's not that surprising that she would be in it again this year. But I thought that maybe, because things have not been going well for Damage Control, and I thought maybe they would want to build to a spot in the match where you have Io on one ladder, or on one side of the ladder, Dakota on the other, and they're both going for the briefcase at the same time. Like, I thought maybe they would work in kind of a spot like that, and in the end, neither one ends up winning. So that was a mild surprise. You said there's nobody else realistically who feels like has a shot to win this match. I disagree with you. I'm going to throw the name Naomi out at you. And the reason I'm going to say Naomi is because, and Triple H is very good at this. It's a very subtle thing, especially in these backstage segments, little things you pick up on. There have been some segments on TV with Bayley and Naomi where Naomi has had her eyes locked on that women's title. And even a few weeks ago, she had her hand on it in one segment. They were like hugging, and then Chelsea came in to interrupt. And Naomi had her hand on that title for like 10 seconds. And I don't know if they're building to a Naomi heel turn. I don't know what the idea here might be. But I think that you can't completely disqualify the possibility that Naomi could get a win. Especially if we have a heel going over in the men's Money in the Bank match. They might want to have a babyface go over on the women's side. And if not someone like Chelsea, I just think if Chelsea is the dark horse, if we're going to rank them, I'm with you. Tiffany should be the one. Number 2, I would put Naomi as the likeliest. And then number 3, I would have Chelsea Green.
I don't know. You know, I hear what you're saying. Honestly, I just think that they've settled Naomi into the role that she's in, and I don't see her coming out of that. That's just
the way it feels that way. I mean, she hasn't won a whole lot of matches, but maybe that's by design.
Yeah.
Maybe it was all building to her, it's not like they haven't done that before. Usually in the past under you-know-who, somebody would win Money in the Bank and then they would go on a losing streak.
Yes, because they had the briefcase, yes.
Right, and because, the person who was booking that was a fucking moron. So, you never know if this was part of the plan all along. Let's, have Naomi. She struggled a little bit. She hasn't exactly won a ton of matches this year, but then she wins the briefcase and she's very friendly with Bayley. But that first opportunity that she gets when she has the chance to cash in, who knows if that might lead to a failed cash in? Who knows if that might lead to her, not cheating, I guess, but cheating her friend out of her title. I'm just saying, don't count her out completely as a possibility.
And what do you make of this Tiffany Stratton and Nia Jax dynamic that we've seen on television? Is that something that we need to look out for if Stratton wins the briefcase? Are they going to kind of become, I guess, not really friends, but I guess acquaintances and buddy up against whoever they are trying to ward off here? Is that going to play into Tiffany potentially cashing in on Nia? Is that the whole reason why they're kind of buddy-buddy right now?
I think so, and I think if Nia beats Bayley at SummerSlam, we may see Tiffany cash in right after.
Yeah.
And win the title.
I could see that.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I said Zoe Stark was the right choice over Dakota, I feel like WWE, they need to play out what they're doing with Damage Control. I get that Io is in Money in the Bank, and Dakota, if she won, she'd be in Money in the Bank. I think we need to, just basically just get rid of Damage Control. We all, I think, are in agreement. It's over. It's done. There's no more that they could do, especially in the light of Rhea Ripley, Becky Lynch, and Asuka not with the active roster right now, and the women's division with the talent that Damage Control is, Io, Kyrie. I feel like all of those women are best on their own and separated from the group, especially if you lost those three huge names. I feel like Dakota needs to go through this process, and I feel like she's just got a great underdog baby face in her. And I feel like I'd like to see her kind of finish this up and then kind of build herself back up to possibly being a top contender at some point. That's why I said don't put her in Money in the Bank. Zoe, I know she was there last year, but, man, she's ice cold. A lot of these women are ice cold on Monday night, and I feel like a match like the Money in the Bank ladder match for Zoe would give her a little bit more of a spotlight and kind of reaffirm to the fans, like, hey, she's talented. I mean, she's got no charisma, but she's talented. She's fucking great at what she does. And a match like that can kind of, spotlight that for people that might be down on her. That was my line of thinking coming out of last night and what I did on my show. But I feel like she was the best. Zoe. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. It's not going to, in the end, it's not going to make a difference for
Dakota
Zoe.
Zoe are not winning. No, so.
And it's not even that they're winning. I'm just saying, like, what you just said about how maybe it'll help open people's eyes to how good she is. She's been around long enough where people know that she's good. Like, she can wrestle. Yeah. It's not like she's brand new. She's been on the main roster for a while now. Her being in the Money in the Bank match is not going to change anyone's opinion of Zoe Stark. We'll see where that story goes with Sonya Deville. We saw it again last night in the background during one of the backstage segments where she was talking to Zoe and Shayna came in and pulled Zoe away. I feel like we're kind of stuck in neutral on that story. Yeah. There's been no real development on that in like a month. I don't know what's going on there. So she's involved in something, and we'll see where that goes. But her being in Money in the Bank, she's a talented wrestler who, she'll enhance the match in that way, but it's not going to, open people's eyes to her if their eyes haven't already been opened.
Before we get into the rest of the Money in the Bank discussion here, my guy David Thiering, $100 super chat. Oh, my goodness. He says, what's up, JD and Solid Monster? Not going to lie, I'm not a huge fan of Solo Sikoa versus Cody Rhodes at SummerSlam either. Got a wild thought, maybe a bit crazy, but what do you guys think? Randy turns heel, attacks Cody, Solo pins Cody, Randy versus Solo versus Cody at SummerSlam. Hashtag TNT.
I don't see it. I don't see it. Although we should probably just skip to that match at this point. Because what I was going to say, because we have a 6-man tag, it's Cody and Randy and Kevin Owens against the Bloodline. Which 3 members we don't know. I'm assuming it's going to be Solo, Tama, Tonga, and Tonga Loa. Yeah. And if the plan is for Cody to defend against Solo Sikoa at SummerSlam, then Solo Sikoa should pin Cody Rhodes on Saturday. And I don't look at it as anything different than last year when Jey Uso, he pinned Roman, right, at Money in the Bank in the Bloodline Civil War match, and then Jey Uso eventually went on to challenge for the title at SummerSlam. We've seen that before. So if that's the match that they have planned, then Solo should pin Cody Rhodes. Randy Orton, how does he react to that? Is he unhappy about the fact that Cody loses the match for his team? Is it a situation where Randy's setting up for an RKO and Cody tags himself in? Yeah, there's things you can do to plant that seed for a few months from now when they eventually do get to Cody and Randy, hopefully, that could happen in that match. I said the other night, I said, man, when that RKO from out of nowhere hits, it's going to hit like crack.
Yep.
It's just a matter of when. You know, does it happen this weekend? It feels premature if they're not doing it at SummerSlam. I don't know if I would, I don't know if I would do that this weekend, but they could. And then maybe Kevin Owens takes issue with it and Randy Orton wrestles Kevin Owens at SummerSlam. Because if you're not doing Cody and Randy, what the hell's Randy Orton doing at SummerSlam this year?
It's a good point.
Right? So maybe he does. Maybe he drops Cody after the match out of frustration and KO is trying to talk some sense into him. Randy walks off. And now you can, because look, I mean, Randy and Kevin Owens have been buddies now for months, right? Going back to before WrestleMania. It's not Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Like, this is not a long-term friendship. It's going to fall apart at some point. It's just a matter of who turns heel first. I think it'll be Randy Orton. But yeah, Randy against Kevin Owens probably makes a lot of sense for SummerSlam because I don't know what the hell else you do with them otherwise, unless you put them in there against Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa, and honestly, who gives a shit?
No, we've seen that. I mean, the whole story would be at that point, Randy Orton just completely frustrated that he can't get one over on the Bloodline. He can't beat the Bloodline, and it's nothing that he's responsible for. It's everybody else around him. Like I straddled myself with these fucking people. I want to beat I want to get rid of them. Can't get rid of them because the fucking guys that I'm teaming with are losers.
Right. Lost King of the Ring. Yeah. You know, eventually everyone has their boiling point, and so he finally hits his. And you could do him and Owens at SummerSlam, and then coming out of that match, let's assume Randy wins. You know, he's in a position now where coming out of SummerSlam, he can challenge for the WWE Championship, and you can have a Cody and Randy feud. Maybe that takes them through the fall. Even though I look at that could be a WrestleMania match. We all know what the WrestleMania match is probably going to be, though. So I don't think it's in the cards, but it just kills me because if we get a Cody and Randy feud at what is their pay-per-view in September? Did they even have one set up at this point?
I don't think so. I think that we're getting two in August. They're skipping September and going right into October.
Okay. So October would be that Bad Blood show, I guess, if they do it. So, yeah, I mean, I wish that first match would be on a bigger show, but again, you can have a Cody and Randy feud carry you through the fall, carry you long enough to where it gets you to Royal Rumble season or WrestleMania season, and by that point, The Rock will probably be back.
Well, what does he do after SummerSlam? What does he do? Does he fight alongside Roman and battle the Bloodline? Are we going to see like some super group between Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns? Because Roman's obviously coming back as the biggest babyface in the company. What does he do there? And I guess a two-part question here for you is, what does he do after SummerSlam? And do you see Roman's return overshadowing everything that Cody Rhodes is going to be doing with that WWE Championship? Because from my vantage point, I feel like Cody's going to be second fiddle on SmackDown to the grand scheme that is this Bloodline story.
Yeah, and there's nothing he can do about it.
No.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, Cody Rhodes is doing everything right as the babyface right now. I mean, he really is. He's a great babyface champion. He is a man of the people, right? We hear about how he spends all this extra time when the show is over, 45 minutes going around ringside, taking pictures and signing autographs and doing all this extracurricular stuff. And the fans are still into him. They still love Cody. But when Roman Reigns comes back, he's going to be the biggest babyface in this entire company. And there is not a damn thing that Cody Rhodes can do about it. So that's just the way it is. You know, he's been gone for many months. Roman was unstoppable for 3.5 years. He was unstoppable. Nobody could beat him. Cody couldn't beat him the first time. It took him 2 tries to beat him. And I always said, when Roman eventually loses, he'll probably go away for a little while. He's going to come back as the biggest babyface in the world. And that's what we're seeing. You know, we hear the people every week, right? We want Roman. We want Roman. And this story they're telling, and we'll talk about it when we get to SmackDown, is, I mean, what they've done with this story lately is so perfect that they're hitting all the right beats. And when that music hits and this guy comes back, there's just nothing that Cody can do. He's got that aura about him where he doesn't even need the title. Honestly, he's in that what I would call like the Hogan territory.
Yeah.
Where Hogan was so big for so long. Same thing. Hogan was on top that first time, 4 years he was champion before he lost it. And after that, Vince was like, we're going to go in a different direction. We're going to push the Warrior. and that didn't work. Hogan didn't have a title, but everybody knew he was still number one, and he didn't need the title. He wanted it, but he didn't need it. And that's where Roman is right now. Roman doesn't ever have to hold the title again, and he's still going to be up here.
No, so the next 2 years, we're going to be fortunate enough to see this story play out. It doesn't even need a championship. It's for the right of the family now.
It's for the family, and there's so many freaking family members. I mean, this story could play out for 3 more years. Yeah. I mean, they just keep coming out of the woodwork. So, yeah, he's going to overshadow Cody, and that's going to be up to Triple H. He has to play it very carefully here. It all depends on creative. It all depends on how strong is the story that you come up with for Cody, and that's why I think Randy Orton, that would be the right choice for him coming out of SummerSlam.
So Randy Orton fused with Cody for the 3rd or 4th quarter of the year, and then we shift gears to the Royal Rumble, and then we start building Cody and Rock?
I think that's the plan.
Okay. I can get behind that. Shifting gears to that SmackDown segment, I guess we'll talk about this here. Paul Heyman was put through a table, and he was given a headbutt off the top rope by Jacob Fatu on top of the Samoan spike that Solo Sikoa gave him. And the acknowledgement ceremony was, in fact, that everybody acknowledged Solo Sikoa as the tribal chief. Heard from Jacob Fatu for the first time. We heard from Tama Tonga, Tangaloa, and then Paul Heyman. And he basically denounced Solo Sikoa. No, you are not my tribal chief. And he was met with the Samoan spike. And rightfully so, was put through a table. And Paul Heyman is now out of commission, and I feel like we will not be seeing him for the duration of the summer, up until at least SummerSlam. Do you see Paul Heyman returning when Roman Reigns returns? Because I think that was the catalyst to really kind of send the signals off in people's heads that, Roman is probably due back any month now, and SummerSlam would probably be the right time to do that. But as far as the segment is concerned, personally, I know I didn't talk about this. I thought this was one of the best Bloodline segments that we've ever seen in the history of the Bloodline story. It's played out on WWE television. I don't want to come off as a mark here, but I was watching it after the fact, late at night after it aired, and I saw this, and Paul Heyman, disheveled as always. Credit to Paul Heyman. I read somewhere, I don't know if this is true. He does not sleep the night before. He gets that disheveled look. He gets the bloodshot eyes. He was actually tearing up during the segment. I don't know what his process is to make everything so believable, but I'll just leave it up to Paul Heyman being fucking brilliant. Whatever the case may be, whatever his strategy is, it's fucking incredible. He started to cry, and when he said, I do not want to call you my tribal chief. No, you're not my tribal chief. I actually started to tear up. Everybody loves Paul Heyman. And then he got his ass beat. He got put through the table. And I'm like, this is fucking great television. Everything about this was so great. What was your initial reaction to that, Jason? And when do you see Paul Heyman coming back? I'm assuming SummerSlam when Roman Reigns returns.
Yeah, my initial reaction was that was the greatest Paul Heyman performance, on-screen performance of his entire career. And it's saying a lot when you consider A, how long he's been around for, and B, how many great segments he's been a part of over the years, even in this Bloodline story, right? So I think that was number one. I thought his performance was fantastic. That pop, that reaction from Madison Square Garden, unbelievable. I mean, everybody, and it's not, we talk sometimes about piped in crowd noise and chants and stuff. You could see everybody in that building, and they had 17,000 people in MSG on Friday night, and everybody just jumped to their feet. As soon
as he said, not my tribal chief, that place was fucking, I'm surprised it's still a building.
You almost couldn't even hear. It was hard to hear the tail end of what he said. That's how loud it was in that building. And then he stood his ground, right? He stood there. His lip was quivering. He knew what was coming. He knew he was a dead man. He didn't run away or try to run away. And then he got his ass handed to him. And credit to him, because look, the guy's 58 years old. He's not in wrestler shape, okay? He should not be taking bumps. He was taking bumps 20 years ago and getting thrashed every week, him and Big Show, by Brock Lesnar when they were feuding. And that was 20 years ago. And so here he is now almost 60 years old, and he takes a triple power bomb. Interesting, a Shield triple power bomb, just to kind of, rub it in to Roman Reigns a little bit. So I thought he was fantastic. I can't say enough good things about him and that entire segment. Jacob Fatu, I got to give him props too. I mean, we know how great he is, and they got him the great entrance now, where they dim the lights and they have flames shooting up, and they've got this red light on him when he, climbs up on the apron. I had to go back and watch this a few more times. I actually watched it like 4 times, and something I did not pick up on the first time is as Solo Sikoa is standing in the ring and he's calling them up one by one to acknowledge him, Jacob Fatu is in the background, and he is pacing back and forth. He looked like an escaped mental patient. He's pacing back and forth. He never took his eyes off Solo, which was interesting. He was like burning a hole through Solo. I just thought, like, man, this guy's been around for a week, and like he's so perfect in that spot right now, anyway, that they have him in. As far as when we see Heyman again, I do think we see him the night that Roman Reigns comes back. In fact, he might walk out first, and then we hit the music. And here comes Roman, because otherwise, when do you bring him back, right? I would think if he's gone until SummerSlam, that's a sufficient amount of time. And again, I said earlier, maybe you even have Jimmy Uso. Maybe they all come back together.
Yeah,
because Jimmy got taken out a few months ago, and they said he was hurt. There might have been a legitimate injury. That may have been why they wrote him off. I haven't heard anything since about there being an injury. So yeah, I think we see Heyman back probably at SummerSlam. Or whenever we get Roman back. And when Roman comes back and they hit that music that first time, you remember SummerSlam 3 years ago? We had Roman Reigns against John Cena.
Yeah.
And Roman beat Cena, and he's celebrating, and then we heard Brock Lesnar's music.
Yep.
And the reaction from everybody when Brock came out. We're going to get that times 5. When Roman finally comes back. That's how well they have built this up for, and how starved people are to see this man back, which is pretty amazing because, and I know he wasn't around every week, but we had Roman on top as champion for 3.5 years. And there were a lot of people who were sick and tired of the Roman Reigns run. And he hasn't even been gone 6 months. And you have people clamoring to get him back. It's not just that they miss seeing the guy, it's that they've done a masterful job of telling this story.
Story is king. That's it.
Paul Heyman deserves a lot of credit for that. And also behind the scenes, because he said before, he's very hands-on. Him and Roman both are very hands-on with this story. I'm sure they have this bloodline shit mapped out at least through WrestleMania next year, if not to SummerSlam next year.
Yeah.
Like, they've got all of this shit mapped out month by month. And that's why they can just have this story continue on for as long as they want to at this point.
And the old administration, I remember, man, I spearheaded the anti-Roman movement when Roman was a babyface and Vince wanted to take the plunger and fucking jam it down everybody's throat, man. I could not stand it. I saw right through it. The narrative and the agendas were just sickening. For 7 years, 8 years, stop. A heel turn is needed. He finally came back, did what he wanted. He aligned himself with Paul Heyman. It was the best Roman decision ever made by creative. Vince allowed it. Roman wanted it. He got it. And for 8 years, we were wondering what the fuck is going on here. And in 1 year, less than a year, I would say, Triple H and his administration with this story is going to make Roman Reigns into the biggest babyface that Vince McMahon could possibly never even conjure up. And it's amazing. I don't want to put it all on Triple H because he got there, while the story was kind of in motion already. But with the characters that are added and all these different aspects of the story, just kind of adding on top of making Roman's return even grander. I mean, this administration has done an unbelievable job with this story. And I said it on last night when I talked about it just a little bit. There was a super chat that asked me my opinion on it. This will go down as the best story in the history of WWE. When it's all completed, it will go down as the greatest story that WWE's ever told.
Yeah, there's no end in sight. So they keep peeling back different. It's like the layers of an onion here. They keep peeling back different layers of the story. They bring in new people. I mentioned Fatu. There's no telling how much longer this story can go on for. And since WrestleMania, up until recently, it was getting very stale. And I was like, okay, we've got to move this along here because how many weeks can we get Paul Heyman acting like the hostage? He can only do so much. Heyman is really the one who has carried this story since WrestleMania. Solo Sikoa, I thought, had his best performance also on Friday night.
Yes.
So, because I've been giving him a lot of crap also. He doesn't really fit in this role. I'm not buying it. Fatu, I'd rather, I could see him in that role. And I still feel that way. But this was the first time I looked at Solo Sikoa and I felt like, okay, now he is starting to feel like this is a role that he's getting more comfortable in, and I can buy him a little bit more. And I didn't feel that way before this week.
You know what it is, man? It's the Jacob Fatu presence. The 2 weeks of Jacob Fatu will do that to you. I think he's kind of up Solo's game a little bit too. I don't want to say that's the case, but I feel like with his presence there, it's just kind of overtaken this thing to the next level.
Yeah, and so now it's just a matter of can they maintain this momentum. I hope so. I think that they've done a very good job so far. There's no reason to think they can't. Just when it starts to maybe get a little dull, they usually pull something else out, and I think the next big step is the return of Roman. I think we're only a few weeks away, probably a month away from that.
We will see how it all plays out. I'm very excited. I don't know where Jimmy and Jay come in, and when we see them get aligned with Roman, that's going to be another whole sub-story in itself. What does Roman got to do? What does Roman got to say to get his cousins back involved? Do we see them get involved at SummerSlam, being that they're all under the same building? I don't know. Under the same roof. Do we see Jimmy come back later? Do we see Jay come back later? How does that happen? Who is going to be aligned with Roman and the Usos? Is it going to be Cody? Is it going to be Sami? Is it going to be another Bloodline member that we don't know, that's not here yet? I don't know. So, we got to start kind of after SummerSlam factoring in how this is going to work at War Games, at Survivor Series. But Sami Zayn, we got the last match here. There is 5 matches. I know you guys are sick of Triple H and his PLEs with 5 matches, but this is not like those B-level pay-per-views. This is a lot going on here. Sami Zayn, Bron Breakker, Intercontinental Championship, singles match. I'm going with Sami to retain the championship here. I said this last night. I still think, even though Bron Breakker has been fantastic and the presentation for him has been near perfect, I think it's way too soon for him to win the Intercontinental Championship. I think Sami's going to squeak out a victory. I think Sami, Jason, kind of foreshadowed what was going to happen here at Money in the Bank with what he said in his promo. He basically looked at Bron Breakker and says, well, you don't really know who I am and what I've done, and if that's the case, you're not really all that smart. And Sami's been through this time and time again, being the underdog. He's beaten guys a lot bigger than him, a lot faster than him. I mean, for Christ's sakes, he beat Gunther at WrestleMania. So, Bron Breakker should be nothing for Sami Zayn and pose no stress for Sami Zayn. But I'm going with Sami Zayn being that he's going to retain the championship, get a leverage pin or a fluky pin, squeak out a victory, and then, like we talked about last week, I think Bron Breakker is going to factor into the IC title at SummerSlam. He'll probably end up pinning a Sheamus or a Kaiser in a fatal 4-way of sorts or a multi-man match of sorts and win the title there. I think it's too soon at Money in the Bank.
Yeah, I think I already thought Sami was going to retain anyway, but then you look at the segment last night on Raw, and we end up with Bron Breakker standing over him, holding the title over his crumpled body.
Big no-no.
Yeah, it's pretty clear to me. I think that Sami's going to pull out again, not with a haluva kick. It's not going to be a decisive win. I think it's going to be a great match. It's honestly one of the matches if not the match, I'm most looking forward to, I think, on Saturday. I think Bron and their presentation of him so far has been masterful. This is how you get somebody over as a big star. It has shades of Brock when he was coming up in his first year, how when he came out, the vibe was different. The feeling was different. You felt like destruction was on the way. And he's just a freak athlete anyway, with his speed and everything. So this is going to be a bump in the road for him. It doesn't hurt him if he loses, especially if it is a fluky type win. And then they can come back. I don't know how long Kaiser will be out for. Even if they can't run it back as a fatal 4-way at SummerSlam, they can do a triple threat. And then the question is, do you put the belt on Bron Breakker at SummerSlam? Or do you put the belt on Sheamus, who has his own little story with that title to be told, with the idea that eventually Breakker would win the title from him, but that's looking more, you'd have to really stretch that out maybe to WrestleMania or something.
Yep.
I think it's more likely Bron will get the belt at SummerSlam than Sheamus. If anything, maybe you do it in reverse, where Bron gets the belt and maybe they save Sheamus's moment for, maybe a WrestleMania next year. But a Sheamus Breaker program, I think at some point would be fucking great. So sign me up for that.
Yeah, I agree. Don't forget Dragunov as well, but maybe Dragunov factors into the World Championship. I know him and Breaker had something going on when Ricochet was feuding with Breaker, and that whole riding off of Ricochet. We don't know where he factors in. Gable may go after it again. We don't really know. So the IC title picture on Monday Night Raw is unbelievable. So there's no shortage of talent there. So I'm in agreement here. I think the way we do it is, I think if I had the pen, I give Sheamus the win at WrestleMania. I do. I think you just pay that off there. Just being that he's put the work in, he's the veteran. That's the big moment. That's a WrestleMania moment that writes itself. I don't know why they would go away from that.
Yeah. So Breaker getting the belt at SummerSlam seems the most likely scenario anyway, but it's not going to happen this weekend. Some
more WWE news and notes before we get into some AEW discussion, guys. Asuka not expect.
Also,
I'm sorry.
Before you get into that, they mentioned last night that there's a 2-hour pre-show. So I don't know if they're going to add a match to that pre-show. I don't think they've been doing matches on their pre-shows. Tony Khan usually has like 4 matches on the pre-show. So I don't know why they need a 2-hour pre-show, but the pre-show starts at 5 and the actual main card starts at 7. Just to remind people, because I think some people, myself included, were still in the 8 p.m. kind of mindset, but it's actually a 7 o'clock Eastern
Wait a minute, bro. You weren't pleased to see Serpenta go on the pre-show?
Oh, I was elated when they added a 15th match with Serpentico and Kyle Fletcher on that card. Honestly, my reaction when I saw Serpentico come out, I just laughed. I mean, what else can you do in that situation? Just fucking laugh. And these poor guys are out there and they're wrestling in front of almost nobody because half the building was still empty. People were still trying to get into the building at that time.
I don't know. I don't know what goes through their heads. It's crazy. 15 matches. I mean, I don't want to sit through 15 matches of anything. Never mind. I don't want to sit through 15 minutes of fucking sometimes a week.
I was like, do they know that this match is actually airing on TV? Is this supposed to be the dark match and they're accidentally airing it on? Like, I was stunned.
Maybe I thought maybe we got mixed up with the Ring of Honor taping or something. I don't fucking know. Whatever.
I don't know.
Asuka not expected back in WWE this year. She is out, and this is coming from Fightful Select via Sean Ross Sapp during a Q&A that he conducted. Asuka won't be back inside the ring this year. Asuka's not expected back by the end of the year, according to people in WWE. Says Sapp, anything can happen. I don't know the type of surgery yet. However you look at it, it's a big blow. It may actually lead to the demise of Damage Control, which I would have no problem with whatsoever. But, I mean, Asuka, she's about 40, 41 years old. She's put a lot into WWE. She's still at the top of her game when she's in the ring. She's incredible. Losing somebody like that is never an easy thing to do. I hope she gets back quick because that women's division needs as much star power as it could get, honestly.
Yeah, Asuka is great. She's 42, and she's been doing this for a long time. And I saw her vlog. She has a YouTube channel.
Yes.
So she's been posting videos, and her leg is in a giant brace. I mean, we don't know the nature of the injury, but there's been so many ACL injuries with the women in this company. It's like epidemic at this point. I don't know if that's what it is, but if she has a major knee injury that's going to keep her out until next year, it sounds like something serious. Whether it's an ACL or not, I don't know. But yeah, hopefully she'll be able to get back at 100% because, she's one of the best they have in that division. And not having someone like her, having her out at the same time as Rhea Ripley and as Becky Lynch, it's noticeable when she's not around.
It is very noticeable. A nice Royal Rumble return would serve her very well. So hopefully that is the case there for Asuka. Natalya has an update on her contract status. This is also coming from SRS over at Fightful. He has learned that Natalya was not backstage this week at Monday Night Raw, was not planned for the show at all. Her WWE deal has been set to expire this summer, and at least internally, the company is very quiet about any developments. Fightful has confirmed the two sides have been engaged in contract extension talks. This development doesn't indicate the direction of those talks one way or another, and sources in WWE have been hopeful that they would retain her, but we've not heard if a new deal has been reached. There is numerous talent on the AEW side who is actually pushing for the possibility of Natalya to join the company. Mercedes Moné alluded to both Natalya and TJ Wilson potentially joining AEW in a recent interview. Jason, I'm not the biggest fan of Natalya, but as far as what she does on WWE TV, she's probably expended everything that she could possibly do there. She's used in a, let's get this young talent over, let's put the young talent in the ring with the veteran and have her learn the ropes via Natalya. And that's all she was really used for. She trains the talent with TJ at their gym, and she feels like she could be a huge asset to the development of the future of the company. But at some point, I feel like Natalya would want so much more for herself. I don't know what she wants. I don't know where she wants to go, what she wants to do. I feel like she could be somebody that wants to go wrestle in Japan and wants to go test her abilities against other wrestlers because she has this reputation of being one of the best to do it. And AEW, with Mercedes over there and, the great talent of roster that they have over there in that women's division and what she could add as a teacher and a coach and somebody who could mold that women's division even further for the future. There's a lot of upside to her joining AEW. I just don't know what she wants. I feel like WWE would be foolish to let somebody like that go. What do you think there?
I think in the end, she'll stay with WWE. I think they'll get something worked out. But again, it really just depends on what she is most interested in. So if she wants to wrestle, she just wants to continue her in-ring career. She wants to win world championships. It's not going to happen in WWE.
Yeah.
So if that's the priority for her, and she feels like she can kind of leave and hit the independent scene and sign with a TNA or an AEW and have like a renaissance in her career, then she'll leave. But I just kind of feel like, and I don't know why Mercedes would bring up TJ unless she knows something that, everybody else doesn't. That's the first time I've heard his name even mentioned. Is his contract up soon?
I don't know. It was just a random kind of blurted out type of comment. I don't know why she would say that.
Yeah. So I don't know in what context she made that remark, or if she was saying maybe she would love to have somebody like him in AEW. So I don't know about his status, but I think in the end she'll end up working out something with WWE. Just my gut. But again, if she wants more, she's not going to get it. She's been in WWE for so long. It's like the Dolph Ziggler thing where when you're there for so long, it's like wringing the sponge until it's bone dry. And there's nothing left.
Yeah.
And that sponge is dry. They've done everything that I think they're going to do with her. Short of a retirement story, and I don't get the sense she's ready to retire. I don't know what else you do with her storyline-wise. And I don't think that she's going to be a priority for Triple H storyline-wise. I think they have a lot of people on the women's roster right now, frankly, who are neglected. You mentioned Dakota Kai. People like that. They have this pipeline of talent in NXT that she has worked with. She has been in NXT in these last few months. She has worked with the talent down there. And I think she could be very beneficial and very useful resource at the Performance Center. If she's comfortable doing that and she wants to be a coach, in effect, then again, she'll stay. And I know she and TJ, they have their, I don't know if it's a school, but it's like a gym.
Yeah,
I know it's a gym thing. Yeah. So it just comes down to her priorities. But if that's her priority, WWE is not going to be the place for that.
Speaking of free agents, Ricochet, he was moved to the alumni section on WWE's website. Now, the rumor is he's headed to AEW, which I'm sure will be the case very, very soon.
Of course. Yeah. Come on. Will Ospreay was basically on hands and knees, begging this guy to come in. Tony Khan's going to give him whatever he wants.
Oh, yeah.
Believe me.
Fightful Select is reporting in recent months that the former Speed champion Ricochet, his contract was set to expire. They confirmed that as of midnight on July 1, Ricochet's deal with the company is officially over. It is done. He is a free agent. No non-compete attached to that. Sources within both WWE and AEW expect Ricochet to join All Elite Wrestling. And Fightful Select reported on Sunday, despite the speculation, Ricochet was not planned to face Will Ospreay at All In, at least as of the recent weeks of television. Ricochet was written off WWE TV by Bron Breakker. And for those asking Samantha Irvin, she is not expected to join him in AEW, which WWE, I don't think, would ever let that happen. Ricochet, Jason, I know a lot of people are like, well, let's put him in the ring against Will Ospreay at All In. We'll get to Will Ospreay in just a little bit and what he did at Forbidden Door and what he will be doing at All In. It does not involve Ricochet. But if I could throw something out at you for Ricochet, because I do think he will be in before All In, why don't we do Ricochet versus Pac at All In?
Yeah, it's been a long time since we've seen that match. That match was, I mean, that was a famous, I mean, I'm sure people are well aware of the history those two have back even before their WWE days. That would be an incredible match. And I think you want to have Pac on that show, and yes. I'm sure Pac wants to have a role at Wembley.
No, guys, Pac is not winning the Owen. Stop. Because I've seen some people in the chat before we got started here. He's going to win. No, he's not winning the Owen.
Yeah, I mean, this is like the people who think Jeff Jarrett is going to win the Owen. I mean, put the crack pipe down. Yeah, no, I sign me up. That's what I would say. I mean, he's a free man now, so he's going to end up in AEW, I'm sure, which means he's going to be available for the Wembley card. And I agree. I don't think he's wrestling Will Ospreay on that show. Ricochet and Pac opening Wembley. There you go.
Hey, listen.
Right there.
You know, I don't want any more titles on AEW television. I think we need to take away some titles, but you know, Tony Khan, if he wanted to, he could really have a great cruiserweight division if he wanted to. I don't know why that's not a thing over there. I mean, that's just the breeding ground for smaller talents. I don't know what we're doing with all these other fucking useless titles. That could be a legit, like, oh my God, that would be great over there.
Yeah, but half the roster is cruiserweight. Right. Do you really need a division? I mean, there's a lot of smaller guys that would fit. I don't even know what the cutoff would be for cruiserweight. I mean, it could be 220, it could be 230. I feel like half the roster is cruiserweight. So I don't think they need a cruiserweight division. And frankly, if you were going to have a title on the line, I mean, that's really what the international title is for. I'd love to see Pac get another run with that at some point. Doesn't need a title. You don't have to worry about divisions or championships. You just have Ricochet come in with a lot of fanfare, and Pac could be the one to lay down the challenge to him, you know, after he gets bounced out of the Owen, and you set it up and you open that show with it and you let those guys go out there and tear the house down. That would be a great way to kick off that Wembley Stadium show.
There you go, Tony. If you're watching, there you go. We just gave you some free advice.
Perfect.
Right? Don't spend it all in one place. Dijak. Let's talk about Dijak. This one was very, very, very disappointing to me. I was a big fan of Dijak well before his Retribution days, which was awful. And him in NXT, his battles with Keith Lee on Black and Gold. I thought he was a very promising guy down there. And then Vince fucked him over. And now he goes to NXT. He reinvents himself. He's got this take on, I don't know what it was, what the influence was, what the inspiration was. It was like kind of big boss man, Punisher, like Rob Halford, Judas Priest type vibe. I don't know what the fuck he was going for, but I dug it. I dug it. I thought it was really good. It made him stand out amongst everybody else down there. But Dijak is no longer with the WWE, and Fightful and Sean Ross Sapp have learned that Dijak was notified that WWE would not be re-signing him at some point following his WWE Speed match with Xavier Woods that was filmed in the last 2 weeks. And while speaking with Sapp, Dijak said in an interview that already dropped on their website, he has theories that WWE had planned to let his deal wind down for a while. Now, throughout the process of his contract winding down, Corey Brennan of Fightful has been told by various sources within WWE and NXT that Dijak was very well liked and praised by officials in the company. And as Dijak confirmed in his tweet this week, was originally set to challenge for the NXT title before he was called up without notice to Monday Night Raw during the draft. They were also told that Shawn Michaels was a big supporter of Dijak's, despite having 2 minor disagreements about creative differences in the past. Dijak told Sapp that Michaels called him directly to welcome him back to the brand, and Dijak would fly there for weeks at a time to get training in as he lives in New Hampshire. Now, questions about why Dijak was not being presented on screen were left unanswered when they inquired, but Corey Brennan spoke to often expressed their surprise that Dijak wasn't a regular at Raw. Dijak told Sapp directly that he could tell something was afoot when he wasn't included in plans for Raw the first couple of weeks after the draft. And since his call-up, there were several weeks where Dijak was not brought to the tapings, and when he was, his plans were often shifted around between main event and speed tapings, but were never planned for an appearance on Monday Night Raw. And they have previously reported that there were no creative plans in place when he was called up. Now, sources close to Dijak's camp has made them aware, Fightful, that early negotiations had begun recently and that there were positive preliminary negotiations before officially they began. However, following these negotiations, WWE did not reach out again until Dijak was notified his contract would be renewed and no serious negotiations took place over a new deal. Those we spoke to were shocked by the fact that WWE did not attempt to negotiate with Dijak, with one former WWE talent saying 20 years ago, Dijak would have had a job till his legs fell off. You know, I think we made a discussion about this, Jason, where we talked about Ricochet not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, and we got into a back and forth where, you know, you, and rightfully so, you know, do place some of the blame on Triple H for why Ricochet wasn't given more of a priority and why he wasn't spotlighted a little bit more coming out of the Vince administration. That didn't really do him any good. You would think that Triple H loves Ricochet, wants to push him, and he didn't really do anything with that. He kind of floundered in the mid-card, and I had made the comment that I think time passed Ricochet by, and, you know, all those young NXT talents that were just coming up through the system and now making their way to Monday Night Raw, they were more of a priority for Triple H than Ricochet was. I don't really understand why someone the size of Dijak, the speed of Dijak, the look of Dijak, the things that he could do at his size, I don't see how they don't have any interest in making him at least a priority for that Intercontinental Championship to add value to that section of Monday Night Raw. I don't know how they look at him and say, he doesn't bring value to what we could do here or in that division for that championship, or he doesn't bring value to Monday Night Raw. This, I don't want to say this is some catastrophic loss for WWE because it's not. The fucking show's going to go on. They're going to replace him. They probably already have him replaced. But this guy is going to fucking kill it on the indies. And it's going to be one of those instances where Dijak is going to make them regret not bringing him back, and they'll look like the biggest idiots in this entire thing for not wanting to give him a shot. I don't know how they let this guy slip through the cracks. I think this is a huge mistake.
What I don't understand is you have a guy who's 6'7", 260 pounds, who can work. You know, he can work his ass off. And you can't find something for him to do on TV. That's very weird to me. There aren't a lot of guys they have on that roster that necessarily look like him or have that kind of size. And to me, it is a complete waste. 7 years. He was in that company for 7 years. He was in the system. And when you have someone like that you have invested in for 7 years, and he was on a main roster deal. So I guarantee you that factored into their decision on why they cut bait with him, because he was being paid main roster money. But they weren't doing anything with him. And I agree. If you're not doing something with the person and you have no plans to do something with the person, then sure, it makes sense to get rid of them. Here's my question, though. Why was he drafted to Raw if there wasn't a plan in place for him? Who made the call in the draft? This was Triple H's draft, right? That's how they build it. The first draft under Paul Levesque. And so he had to have some level of input into this decision. Why is this man called up to Monday Night Raw if they have no plans to use him? Why is Odyssey Jones drafted to Raw 2 years in a row? How many appearances has he made on TV so far?
0. He was
None.
Actually, someone sent me a screenshot that he was one of the security guards during the segment with Nikki Cross handing the box over to Michael Cole. He was sitting right behind
great.
him.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yes. Okay, so you called him up to be a security geek. Wonderful. That's a great investment.
At least he wasn't dead on the table.
Yeah, okay. Well, give it time. Right? That could always be next week. So, but that's what I mean. Like, again, these decisions that are made, and they just don't make any sense to me. But Dijak, he was on, I think it was Busted Open, or maybe it was a different podcast. And he talked about the moment that he knew he was fucked. And it was in the draft. Because he's sitting there at the Performance Center, and he said it's a shoot. They don't tell you, you don't know that you're going to be drafted, and they want to shoot your legitimate reaction. He had been told by somebody in upper management that he was going to be in the NXT Championship picture with Trick Williams. Not that he was necessarily going to beat Trick and win the belt, but that he would work with him. Maybe in the role that Shawn Spears ended up getting last month. So he already knew, okay, they have a plan for me. I'm going to work with the champion here in NXT. And now here comes the draft, and he knows that if he gets drafted, it's probably not going to be good for him. and even worse if he gets drafted in the supplemental draft. So they get to the end of the draft. Now they're about, and he's like, okay, thank God I didn't get picked. And they're like, and now, because they have more supplemental picks, and he says, that's it, I'm fucked. And sure enough, they picked him. And he knew at that moment he had to be happy about it and pretend that he's all, excited to go to Raw. But he knew even then. He told his wife, he texted his friends, he goes, I'm fucked. And sure enough, the first Raw that he went to, he saw that his name wasn't on the sheet. They didn't have any plans to use him. He never made a single appearance on TV, and then they got rid of him. Why invest 7 years into somebody without at least trying to see if you can get some return on your investment? Try. If it fails, at least you gave him a shot. It didn't work. The fans maybe didn't catch on. And so you've got to move on at some point. Sometimes
7 years and 3 different gimmicks. Nothing.
But you would think they would have. Now, I'm not counting Retribution. Retribution was not his fault. Okay, they had him out there dressed like fucking Bane from the Batman. Like, give me a fucking break, okay? He was wearing that. The only saving grace is that he had a mask on, so he can hide his identity. Mustafa Ali was not so lucky. It took him a long time to get over that shit. But I'm not counting Retribution, okay? So after that, they sent him to NXT. He had a pretty decent run there. They call him up, give him a shot, at least try. It's the Swerve Strickland thing, right? He didn't spend 7 years in the system. He was only there for maybe 2. But they called up Hit Row. I think he had 1 match on SmackDown. It was a tag match. I don't think we ever saw him work another match on TV. And they got rid of Swerve Strickland. This man now is world champion in AEW.
Yeah.
Probably going to headline Wembley Stadium. Swerve is fucking great. That's a swing and a miss. And Dijak is going to end up being a swing and a miss too. Even if he doesn't become a world champion, he's a great talent who I'm sure, like you said, he's going to kill it wherever he goes. I think that New Japan could be a great landing spot for him, especially now they've lost some foreign talent on top. I think that there's an opening there, a void that he could fill. I think TNA would be a great spot. Of course, AEW, yes, he would,
and he was backstage at Forbidden Door.
He was out here on Long Island, and he was backstage. In his tweet, he tagged Tony Khan, he tagged Tommy Dreamer, and AEW or TNA. I actually think TNA might be the better play for him because I feel like in AEW, I just don't know that he's going to necessarily be in a spot that he wants to be in. Whereas in TNA, he might have a better chance of being a little higher up, more of a featured player on the card. So I don't know exactly where he'll land, but he'll land somewhere, and I think he'll do well. And I just think it's a complete waste. And just to invest all that time in somebody and not even find out, can we make money on this guy? Can we get something back for our investment? Can we get something out of him? Call him up. Let him be a bodyguard. Let him be a heater for somebody on the main roster, even if you don't have him wrestling at first. He had the Diesel look. He had the glasses. He had the black coat. Let him be someone's bodyguard. Some other talent that you're trying to push and see where that goes. Damian Priest is probably going to be out of the Judgment Day soon. Maybe he could have taken his place and become part of the Judgment Day. Come up with an idea for this guy who's 6'7", 260 pounds and can do fucking moonsaults and can work his ass off. You mentioned the matches with Keith Lee and other people, Wesley in NXT. Maybe it's just people named Lee. I don't know. He could work with Dragon Lee on the main roster.
Didn't he work with Dragunov too? He worked with Dragunov, didn't he?
He worked, yes. He had a great match, actually, with Ilya Dragunov. I think he worked with Oba Femi.
But that's not enough to find out that this guy could work and you can't use him?
Well, we already know he can work. Like, that's not even the issue. We know he can work, but, on the main roster, it's about characters and it's about stories. They never gave him one.
But my thing is the whole point of this report was, all right, give us the real backstory on why Dijak was not brought back. The fucking part that stands out to me is that Shawn Michaels was a big supporter of Dijak, probably didn't want to lose Dijak, would welcome him back to the brand. So where is the communication between Triple H and Shawn Michaels in this draft? Like you said, why do they call him up if Shawn Michaels is such a big supporter? Shouldn't Shawn Michaels stepped in and say, hey, Paul, listen, maybe we should keep him down here for a little bit more, 6 to 12 months. Let me give him a run with the NXT Championship. Maybe it'll change your mind. I don't understand where the communication got lost there. Like, why did he get called up if they weren't going to use him, like you mentioned?
It's very clear to me because Shawn has no power. He has no power over this this type of stuff. We saw that with Ali. He was going to put the North American title on Ali. I'm sure of it. I'm sure that Ali last year was going to be Dominic Mysterio to win the North American title. And they fired him. They released him a week before whatever that, PLE was that NXT was
Well, he
doing.
made them look stupid.
Yeah, and then they had a scramble. I think they put Trick Williams in there instead against Dominic, but it's like, so that tells you right there everything you need to know about Shawn and his influence and how much input he has into things. Because he's always the first person who admits, boy, I was shocked. I was really sad and I was shocked. And I don't know. I don't make those decisions. So they're not factoring him into any of this decision making here. So yeah, because Shawn Michaels is actually able to see this guy firsthand. He's hands-on with him. He knows the talent that he has. If it was up to Shawn, Dijak would still have a job. But he has no power. So Dijak now is, unemployed. And it's ridiculous. I could accept it if you gave him something to do and it didn't work and he dropped the ball. I look at Karrion Kross and the Final Testament, and I want to see Karrion Kross do well. I feel like there's something there. But this stuff, it just doesn't work. It's a fucking bore so far. But they keep giving him chance after chance. I'm not saying fire Karrion Kross. I'm saying if you're giving him chance after chance, what makes him so special as compared to Dijak?
Yeah, we're seeing a problem too slowly develop. I don't know if you guys are paying attention. That's a good point. If Kross is on TV and it's boring, because that's exactly what it is, it's boring. Why not give Dijak a chance? I'm left asking, where's Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne? Weren't they on television pretty? They were on television in abundance, and now all of a sudden, since the draft, they haven't been on television. Like, I don't know where are these talents, these certain talents? Why are they not being used? Which it makes me question what the fuck's going on there. Sometimes
I'll give you another example here. What the hell's going on with Montez Ford? There was a point last year. Well, I don't even think it was this year. I think it was last year. Montez Ford was in the Elimination Chamber, and it looked like they were starting to maybe try to build him up as a single. Maybe they weren't quite ready yet to break up the Street Profits, but okay, we see something in this guy. He's very athletic. He's very charismatic. And it looked like maybe they were building to something. He's done nothing since then. We've had the Street Profits. Sometimes they get a little bit of a push and then they don't. The stuff with the Pride has just completely fallen off a cliff since Bobby Lashley got hurt and he's been off TV.
Yep.
But what the hell have they been doing with him? What the hell have they been doing with the Street Profits? That he's in the same spot now that he was in 3 or 4 years ago.
Well, he's pretty deadly.
Well, they just showed up on SmackDown for the first time in weeks. They were in a backstage segment for 2 minutes on, I think they're wrestling the Street Profits this Friday. So, yeah, I don't know where they disappeared to, unless there was an injury that was not disclosed. You can cite them as well, but you could find these examples. So for all of the positives that we can sit here and talk about the Bloodline and about McIntyre and Punk, and they're firing on all cylinders right now, they are. They're firing on all cylinders in a way that they haven't in many, many years, but they are not free from problems. And so we're pointing out some of the names, and this isn't even all of them necessarily. There are people who unfortunately get screwed over, and there are people who fall through the cracks through no fault of their own. They have talent. They have something to contribute. I'm sure they would love to contribute, and they don't get that shot. And in the case of Dijak, he's not going to, because they got rid of him. And so I hope he goes out there and he throws it right back in their face and says, hey, I'm going to show you. And he kills it wherever he goes, because he at least deserves that. He at least deserves a shot. He never got a fair shot on the main roster. If you're going to call people up, have a plan for them. Why not have a 6-month plan for someone before you call them up? That's what I don't understand. Why call somebody up in the draft and then not use them? It's insane to me.
At one point or another, Triple H said, we're not going to call anybody up unless there is a 6-month plan. Clearly there is not.
And I thought that he said that too.
He did say that.
I wonder if it's the butterfly effect. Well, I thought he did, and I tried to find the quote, and I couldn't find it. What I found was, it was something, and I don't think it was attributed to Triple H, but it was something about how in developmental or in NXT, if you don't show progress in 6 months, you're on the bubble and they may get rid of you, because there's so much talent that they're constantly bringing in. If you don't show improvement within a certain period of time, they're going to get rid of you. I couldn't find the quote. Maybe he did say it, because just recently I was looking for that quote and I couldn't find it. But if he did say it, he's certainly not living up to it. He should take his own advice. Yeah. And now that he's in full control, right, we're in the Paul Levesque era, he's got the book, he's got the power, he should take his own advice. And if you're going to call people up, have a fucking plan for them. Otherwise, you're cutting them off at the knees right from the word go, and that's not going to do anybody any good.
And listen, for all we know, he could end up back in WWE with the TNA partnership. He could end up in TNA and still work with WWE and NXT in some capacity. Like Jason, I think TNA would probably be the best bet for him. Him and fucking PCO, him and Hammerstone, him and Alexander, him and Santana. I mean, give me a break. Ali. I mean, the list goes on. And he could easily be a world champion over there. And being that they have a working relationship with WWE, he'd be on their radar still, and maybe they change their mind. But going to AEW, I think, is a bad move. I think he's going to get lost in the shuffle. He'll end up on Rampage and wrestling some unknown Ricochet. Guy from Mexico.
Yeah, Ricochet is going to get lost in the shuffle. Yeah. But again, I like the idea of the Pac match. At least he can get a big match at Wembley. He can wrestle Pac. Yep. He can wrestle Ospreay. He'll get a few big matches out of him. But look, let's be honest here. Even Ricochet, if he goes to AEW, you give it a few months, he's going to be lost in the shuffle just like so many other people there.
And one last WWE note here, guys. Frustration in WWE over the heavy censorship and editing on Friday Night SmackDown. Sean Ross Sapp and Fightful Select reported that there was frustration from several WWE sources. They heard from over the heavy censorship and editing during the broadcast on Friday. A longtime WWE star who wasn't on the show noticed Fightful's tweet about being excited for SmackDown to move back to USA Network later this year. It's a lot better than Fox, but they got their own censorship. As we heard last night, they bleeped out holy shit during the Chad Gable and Wyatt 6 segment. The talent said, it's a chore to watch sometimes. I understand censoring fuck the Pacers, but it feels like every segment is edited and it makes us look like our production. WWE bleeped out a fuck the Pacers chant and blacked out part of his segment with Nia Jax where a kid flipped her off. WWE moves to USA Network in September with SmackDown, and WWE Raw moves to Netflix in January. So I know you watched it live, Jason. I know you were pretty upset with the black screen, black screen of death. It's fucking awful, man. I get a fuck the Pacers chant, but blacking the whole screen out. I mean, just mute the fucking sound at that point, and then. To me, the censorship, even on USA Network at like 9 o'clock, I think it's a little fucking childish. I mean, we're in 2024. I know everything is kind of PC nowadays, but I mean, if you don't know what those words are and you're not using those words in everyday language, I mean, it just takes away from the fucking show. It's a pro wrestling show, and the fans are 50% of the fucking reason why we watch. The energy. Don't take that away from us, and they just kill it every week.
Yeah, and I can understand them being frustrated because it's a similar thing with AEW. I feel like AEW has had audio issues from the very beginning almost. And whenever they have audio problems, they get a lot of shit for it. As it turns out, usually more often than not, people who are watching on Triller or are watching in other countries, they don't have those issues. And it turns out that it's usually TNT or TBS, but AEW gets the blame for it. And so I'm sure that frustrates them also. It's a similar situation here. If you're WWE, you have people thinking, man, they can't get their shit together here. And it's not a WWE issue. It's purely a Fox issue. And I am convinced that part of it is they know they're losing the show and they don't give a shit. They know that this show in a couple of months is going to be off the network. They've already said, hey, we're not renewing. We don't want to work with you anymore. I don't think they care. And I think that they will continue to butcher the show, unfortunately, every single week. We're going to get more and more of this. USA has their own censorship, but they don't black the screen out.
No.
That's the thing. It's the blacking out of the screen. They did that with The Rock. Apparently, I couldn't figure it out that one time. And they're like, oh, there's somebody in the crowd that has a Die Rocky Die sign. I said, that's why they blacked out the entire screen. It didn't have it didn't say fuck The Rock or anything on there, like Die Rocky Die gets a fucking
You'd think
black
Triple H is on the fucking apron pointing to a woman with big fucking boobs in the crowd. Pulling it down. Yeah. It's like, come on, man.
Right. I mean, what the hell are we doing here? So like, I'll look, and the USA thing is annoying too, because it's like, holy blank. But I'll take that over just muting the audio and blacking the screen out at the same time. It almost makes the shows unwatchable. And the show was so good on Friday, I still enjoyed it, but it's to the point sometimes where it just makes them unwatchable. Yeah. I can see Triple H sitting at Gorilla probably just, pulling out what's left of his hair. I guess he doesn't have any hair anymore, but if he did, he'd be pulling it out because it's nothing that he's doing. They have no control over it. I don't think Fox cares. I think Fox is like, hey, fuck these guys.
I think
they're
right.
gone soon anyway.
I think you're right. I mean, they don't give a shit. They're leaving for USA Network. Fuck them. Mm-hmm. Firepan in the chat says, JD, what if the children hear the bad words, though? I get it. I understand it. I wish WWE would do something, especially on Monday night, where we get into that 9:30, 10 o'clock hour, and that really isn't an issue. I used to love the War Zone. It's a little bit amped up, a little bit more pushing the envelope, but they don't really care to do that, so... I mean, we just got to live with it until they move to Netflix.
Still have their, and I'm glad you brought that up. I talked about this on my show on Sunday. I feel like there are people who think that when Raw moves to Netflix, it's going to be F-bombs every other promo, and it's going to be like the Attitude Era on steroids. And I think they need to understand it's not going to be like that. They're going to loosen the handcuffs a little bit. It's going to be better. You're not going to get black screens. But if you're expecting a return to Attitude, then you need to pump the brakes. I think people are they're letting their imaginations run wild here. And I got even more bad news for you. You're going to get commercials too. You may not get as many of them, but you are going to get commercials in some way on Netflix. But I'm still looking forward to it because it's going to be a much better situation than the one we're in now. Even with the commercials, I can't imagine that they end up being as intrusive as they are, on Monday nights now. So I'm sure it's just overall going to be a better situation, and they'll be more lenient on language, but they still have sponsors. They still have partners they work with, and they have to work within certain parameters. It's not going to be the Wild West, but I do think it'll be a better viewing experience.
Issa is in the chat. She says, fuck them kids. They know more bad words than me.
Well, I'm happy. I'm very happy that Issa has come out of her funk. She's been very upset that Roman Reigns lost his title and Roman has been missing. And, did you watch the show Narcos?
I have not.
You really should. You may have seen the meme, though, where, Escobar there's like those multiple scenes, but like one scene, he's just sort of walking aimlessly. Another one, he's sitting on like a bench or a swing by himself, looking very bored. Like I picture Issa walking around like that, just waiting for Roman to come back. So I'm glad that she's being more of herself and coming out of her shell. I was worried about her for a while.
She's got nothing to worry about. It'll be back in about a month and a half. So
yeah, see, there it is. I've been depressed since the end of Mania.
Oh my God.
That's
Roman. It's always Roman. How's Roman doing, Issa? We miss little baby Roman. Little pup. Love Roman. What I loved was the main event for AEW Forbidden Door between Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay. We're going to get into some AEW talk right now, and I want to start off with this because this was the absolute latest before Jason and I came on here live for TNT episode 55. Just a quick thought here on Forbidden Door. I enjoyed the show for what it was. I am very bored with the concept. Jesse and I have coined the Forbidden Door almost like the All-Star Game for the NBA or the MLB. It's basically AEW's version of the All-Star. Yeah, the Pro Bowl. It's the All-Star Game for pro wrestling. That's what Tony Khan has made it out to be with the partnerships from all these different promotions involved. I thought it was the weakest of the three Forbidden Door shows. I've been to two of them. I did not go on Sunday night. I did not feel like sitting there for 5 hours and 15 matches. I would much rather sit with my coffee.
Saw you getting pizza with Jesse, though.
Yes.
I saw Jesse posted something with, now was that in Manhattan?
That was West Village, right down the street from my favorite bar in the city, Peculiar Pub. Grandma's Pizza, it was. Yes, we have been there, yes. Yeah, he had pizza. He enjoyed it. He said he will no longer shit on New York pizza, which is a good thing. But he was there at the show. I was not. I didn't want to be there. I enjoyed the show, Jason, but as far as the three Forbidden Door shows, I think it was the weakest of them all, but it had the best main event out of all three shows that we've seen so far from AEW. I know we talked about this. I don't know how they keep the concept fresh. I don't know how we take this Forbidden Door and go on into next year's Forbidden Door, if there will be one. They had $1 million gate. I don't know why it would go away. People still are interested in the concept. But now AEW is partnering up with Stardom and Ring of Honor and, New Japan, and they have this Dynasty show one day following the Wrestle Kingdom show in January. Are we getting to a point where it's a little bit too much now for these Forbidden Door shows, this concept of Forbidden Door?
No, I mean, if you're New Japan, I think the plan probably always was at some point, we need one for ourselves. I mean, all these Forbidden Door shows are hosted by AEW here in the States. I think it was inevitable that at some point New Japan would get its own show, and Tony Khan would have to just fly talent out to Japan, even if that means they have to miss Dynamite that week. So now they're finally getting their own show. And what I wonder is, New Japan business is not what it was 5 or 6 years ago. I mean, they were decimated by the pandemic, and they haven't really fully come out of it yet. So now it's a little ambitious because they're running 2 nights back to back at the Tokyo Dome. So they always have the Dome show on January 4th. Now they're adding January 5th also at the Tokyo Dome. And I think they're just banking on the fact that we're going to have AEW names and Ring of Honor. I mean, Ring of Honor doesn't really mean anything anymore, but they're going to have CMLL and Stardom. And it's a risk. I think it's a risk because you're not going to fill up the Tokyo Dome, but how many people can they get in the Dome back-to-back nights? We'll find out. The concept is just, it is tired in that we get Forbidden Door every week.
Yeah.
Tony Khan he has no issue bringing in talent from other promotions in other countries, but it happens so frequently that the fact that we have, at the beginning when we had that one show, it was like, wow, okay, this is like the one night a year we can get us against them, and we can get talent from New Japan and AEW. And New Japan had more talent, more big names at that time than they do now. AEW has taken a lot of that talent. Their contracts expired. They opted to come to AEW. I was shocked, and I'm still shocked, frankly, that Okada left. I didn't see him leaving. That was a big surprise to me. So they lost Okada, and they lost Ospreay, and they lost Jay White, and Kota Ibushi, and others as well, although those are the big ones. And I think now when New Japan comes in, it's lost a little bit of its luster because they don't have as many of those big names anymore. So we saw people like Yota Tsuji was on the show, and it's always nice to see Ishii, and he was there. And you have
Jeff Cobb.
Jeff Cobb is great.
Shingo.
Naito, and I thought that was the most disappointing match on the entire show.
Yeah, it was boring.
The John Moxley Naito match was not good.
Tanahashi fucking crippling his way out to the ring. I mean,
yeah, and it's sad. I mean, I still enjoy seeing him and Okada mix it up. Just for nostalgia, I still enjoy that. So yeah, it's an aging roster. They've lost some names, and now that we're in year 3, it's not going to have the same appeal that it did. It felt special then. It's not special now. The onus is on Tony Khan to make it special, and this year he brought in CMLL and Stardom, so we had Mina and we had Hechicero, and next year I'm sure we're going to get a Forbidden Door. I'm 100% sure they're going to continue doing it. Like you said, they had $1 million gate, which I think that was on 11,400. I think they said was the attendance, and that's great. So they're going to run it back again. And next year, maybe they bring another promotion into it. Otherwise, I'm assuming it's pretty much going to be AEW and New Japan. And they'll just have to put a card together that people are excited for. But yeah, it's not going to feel the same. Because now, WWE, under Triple H and Nick Khan, look what's going on there. The Forbidden Door, the whole reason that was coined really was because WWE doesn't work with other people. So it was such a novel concept to see these major companies coming together for some sort of like inter-promotional event. I wouldn't be shocked if we get a Worlds Collide show, next year between NXT and TNA.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have said that 2 years ago. I would have said you're out of your fucking mind. But now we're starting to see that even with WWE. So now it's like, well, everybody's opening the Forbidden Door. It's not even forbidden anymore. You almost have to change the name of the show.
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense anymore.
Triple H and Nick Khan really throwing a wrench into the alternative that is AEW. Well, it's not the alternative anymore, guys. You got to understand that.
It is in some ways,
yes.
but in a lot of ways it's not. But I mean, it's a good point though. I mean, they probably should change the name of the show. Yeah. I guess they have equity in that name at this point.
It's a cool name.
Yeah, it's a cool name, but it makes less sense now than it did back then. So yes, we're gonna get more of them. It doesn't mean what it used to. And I agree, it was the weakest of all three. Still a very good show, but it was the weakest of all three with the best main event. And that includes Danielson and Okada last year, which was really good, although they had a better match at the Dome this year. But that Will Ospreay Swerve Strickland match was, in a word, sensational. Yeah. I mean, that match somehow exceeded the expectations that I had for it coming into it. And the crowd was with them every near fall, every big spot. The only critique I had towards the end there, they went one near fall too many, I thought. I think it was, I want to say Ospreay kicked out maybe of the first house call kick, or I think that's what it was.
Yeah, I think he got up at a 1. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think he got up at a 1 almost. No?
I think it was a 2, but whatever it was, that was the only critique I had. I would have just taken that near fall out of it. But they had an incredible match. This was a win. I said this in my review. This was a win that Swerve needed more than Ospreay. Will Ospreay lost nothing by losing that match.
He lost nothing. Absolutely zero from losing this match.
No, exactly. And Swerve is still really in the infancy of his title run. He only first won the title in April. He had a really good match with Christian Cage at Double or Nothing that absolutely nobody, looked at as the main event. This was his first pay-per-view main event. He had to go in there and have a great showing and hold on to the title, because that would have been just ridiculous if they would have taken the title from him so quickly. He went in there, he won, and he won in decisive fashion, and he had a fantastic match. And you were starting to mention the report, earlier from Fightful about Will Ospreay. It was either his idea or he endorsed the idea of having this match in the first place and going in there and putting him over, because he wanted to quell all of this talk, and this chatter about Swerve, I guess, not being the guy or not being looked at as a legitimate champion.
Well, who started that? That was AEW mishandling Swerve's title run as soon as he won it. That's why those rumors got started. That's why that discussion got started. So who's to blame there? It's not Swerve. It's not Will Ospreay. It's not their fucking mess to fix up.
Well, it's not even a mess. I just think that, I looked at it a little bit differently. I'm not even shitting on AEW for it. I'm looking at it as it's an endorsement of Will Ospreay. Like, this guy gets it, Yeah. And not only does he get it, but he's somebody, like, that's the kind of guy that you want in position as your top guy or your top babyface, because he's not in this just for himself. He's looking at the bigger picture. He's looking at this as, how can I not only just get myself over, because he's already over, how can I help get other people over? How can I enhance them, right? Swerve, he doesn't need my help. He's a great talent. He's the champ, right? And I'm not. But if there are people who are doubting this guy, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to prove to people why this guy belongs in the position that he's in. So he's very giving of himself in that way. That's the right attitude to have. That's a great attitude to have in your top guy. A lot of top guys, very selfish, very protective of their spot historically, right? Some have admitted it, like sharks in the water. That's just how the wrestling business is. Will Ospreay is looking at the bigger picture and saying, how can I help lift everybody? How can I help lift this company? That's the kind of guy that I want to have if I'm Tony Khan at the top of my card representing my company. So he's going to be a world champion at some point, guaranteed. I think most people believe that. And it may not happen this year, but it's going to happen, and he'll be their top guy at some point. But I thought it's a very selfless thing on his part, which was great to see. Which is not to say that Tony Khan wasn't going to have Swerve go over regardless. Like, I didn't read it as he would have had Will win, but I just read it as Ospreay may have gone to Tony and said, hey, why don't we do this match now on this show? Like, I don't know if you're planning that for Wembley or not, but like, let's do this now because, this is why. And maybe that's why we got the match. It was surprising when they announced it. I didn't think they were going to go to it this quickly, And that's when I started thinking, okay, maybe they'll do 2. This is the first one.
Yep.
And it doesn't look like that's the case.
He'll win the Owen. He'll get in. He'll beat Swerve at Wembley.
Yeah. But now we get a sense of why they wrestled at Forbidden Door. Obviously the idea, it sounds like, was planted in Tony's ear by Ospreay. And I just think that's great. It's a great reflection on Ospreay and just how selfless he was, in this situation.
Now, I don't want to immediately shit on Tony Khan because I don't know what the plan was. Just like how it may have been the plan all along to do this match on Long Island. I could easily come back and say, well, we don't really know that for sure. For all we know, Tony had Swerve in there against some random New Japan talent, which would have done nothing for his title run, and his reign, beating somebody like that.
That would have been awful.
It would have been terrible. He needed a solid victory over a major name to stamp his title run as successful, because up until Forbidden Door, I don't want to say it hasn't been. Creatively, it's been a bust. And I'll stand by that 1,000%. The match with Ospreay did so much more for Swerve than anybody could really imagine, because I said it on my show Sunday night. He is now, the title reign is made. He beat the biggest name in the company that is not himself and not MJF. That needed to happen, and they did it. So good on Tony Khan for doing this match and thinking potentially that way. Again, I don't want to shit on Tony. Maybe it was something that he had thought of, and he got like that extra, nudge by Will Ospreay. Hey, I think this is the way to go. And it just kind of reaffirmed his decision to go and do that. So I don't really know. But the story says here, Sapp says that the people that they spoke to said that Will Ospreay, who has long been a friend of Swerve in real life, grew tired of seeing the Swerve title run with the placeholder term around it, because everybody thought that Will Ospreay was going to wrestle Swerve in Wembley and take the title off of Swerve. Sources within the company and close to Ospreay tell SRS that Ospreay approached AEW higher-ups and extended his desire to put over Swerve to help eliminate that talking point. Considering that Ospreay already had big creative plans in store throughout the year, he had no issue with the situation and wanted to set an example for AEW to succeed. It needed to be a team effort. Based on what Fightful heard, Ospreay made the approach after winning the International Championship and wanted to show that nobody should be above losing to the world champion. Some in the company claimed that a point was being proven as a result. There were many that had previously expected Ospreay and Swerve at All In, but Fightful is told that was never the plan, and both have different opponents planned for Wembley. AEW sources also said that Ospreay has been great to deal with in the company and has often helped out when needed, including when others ask for help putting matches together. Like you said, Jason, this is the type of guy that Tony Khan needs. This is a guy that's going to put the company first. This is a guy clearly that has his head on right and knows what needs to be done. I tend sometimes to jump to conclusions. Again, I don't want to shit on Tony Khan, but the way that this comes off to me when I read it was like, man, they didn't know that this needed to be done? I hope that they knew. That's my point. I hope that management, I hope that Tony knew that Swerve winning and Swerve not losing the championship at Wembley, I hope that was never the case. He needed to win. I just want them to know that the decisions that they made here, I hope that was management before Will Ospreay. That's my point. I don't want it to have be a situation where Will Ospreay was the one that told Tony, hey man, this is something we need to do, and there was a plan that was changed. I don't want Will Ospreay to be the one to go to Tony Khan and say, hey boss, whatever you got going on, let's scrap it. I think this is a better idea, and then Tony goes with it. I want Tony and his team to come up with the fucking ideas and the plans that stick and are right. I don't want them to go seek out wrestlers and have them book their own creative and come up with their ideas and have it be better than what management has for them. That's my problem. And I feel like that's a problem throughout the company. I just hope that's not the case.
Yeah, I hope not either. Because, again, to take the title off Swerve on that show would have been a slap in the face to Swerve. And you mentioned a moment ago, I don't know if you misspoke, but you said that, hoping that he doesn't lose at Wembley. He may lose at Wembley. There's still a chance, depending on who he defends against, he could lose the championship at Wembley. I think there's less of a chance of that now than if they would have rematched these two.
Yeah, I said that because I don't think he, after that win over Ospreay, I don't think so, and B, I don't think that's the right move now at all. I mean, look at the momentum he has coming out of Forbidden Door. I think it would be even more stupid now to take the belt off of him after this match.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think there's a much better chance now he goes in as champion and comes out as champion. So this was the win that he needed, though. and it could not have come in a better match. That was his best match in his AEW career. And I'll throw in the Texas Death Match with Hangman. It was different. You know, it was a very different kind. It's like, I liken it in a way to the way I look at the Hell in a Cell match with Undertaker and Mankind. And I know some people look at that and go, that's the greatest Hell in a Cell match of all time. I still think it's the first one with Shawn and the Undertaker. I look at Mankind and the Undertaker differently. It's like a spectacle more than a match. It's hard to describe, but I just don't look at it the same way. That's kind of the way I feel a little bit about that Texas Death Match. It was so violent and bloody and gory, and it was great in its own way, but just bell to bell as far as a wrestling match is concerned, what we saw on Sunday was the best AEW match of Swerve's career. And it came at exactly the right time, at exactly the right moment when he needed it the most.
I agree, and the reason why I say Swerve is now on his way to having a great title run, because it was not going that way. He beat Ospreay, and a lot of people were wondering, well, why isn't MJF in the Owen? Why isn't MJF going after the World Championship? MJF should be going after the world title that he got screwed out of at World's End in December. MJF actually put his own stamp of approval on Swerve Strickland. When he was interviewed on Busted Open Radio, MJF discussed not going after the world title after criticisms that he should be going after the world title and that he should be in the Owen. And he praised Swerve Strickland for his current work. He said, right now is not the time. I know when that time is. Right now, it's not. Swerve is on a goddamn roll. I don't like him. I'd go as far as to say I hate him. We don't agree on anything. We look at professional wrestling in entirely different ways. I'd say that I have more disdain for Will Ospreay than I do for him, hint, hint, which is going to be his all-in match. I've never seen a guy more locked in than Swerve Strickland right now. Sorry, Swerve. The guy is absolutely locked in. He's next level. Do I want to deal with him at the moment when he's 100% and I'm still healing from a shoulder injury? Do you think that's bright? I'm a man that picks my spots. So MJF tried to cover up the fact that he's not going after the World Championship after criticism that he should. Which is not necessarily a bad thing because that's just, how the fans see MJF. But, he put his own stamp of approval on Swerve, Jason. That's a big stamp of approval from the guy who basically is the face of the company.
Yeah, it's kind of like what they tried to do on Dynamite the other night with him and Daniel Garcia, where he said all these wonderful things about Garcia and put him over on the mic. I like the fact that he at least took the time to address it. I still feel like he should have been in the Owen. He didn't have to win. I just think it was a case where they didn't want to beat him this soon. So it was still, to me, storyline-wise, ridiculous that he would not have declared his intention to want to be in the Owen. It's not like he's just asking for a title shot. He's willing to be in the tournament and have to work his way through because he wants to be back in the main event at Wembley so that he could headline 2 years in a row. And I think that would have been a sensible story to tell. And then it's up to Tony at that point to figure out, okay, who beats him? When does he get bounced? By who? They didn't do that. If the plan is, and sure it looks like the plan is, Ospreay and MJF, he may have just figured, well, given who his next opponent is going to be, it's a babyface in Ospreay. He's not going to screw him over in the tournament. He just may have felt that it didn't make any sense. But I'm glad he at least took the time to address it. He put the mention in there about how on my shoulder, I'm not 100% yet, which I don't know. I'm sure he is, but at least he addressed it. And Ospreay and MJF clearly is the direction for Wembley Stadium. This Daniel Garcia stuff, though, he outright challenged him to a match at Wembley on Wednesday, and I had to stifle my laughter. Because as talented as Daniel Garcia is, your number 2 match at Wembley Stadium ain't going to be MJF against Daniel Garcia. I'm sorry. That's just not going to happen.
Well, the thing that got me with that is that he came out and says he's been racking up victory after victory after I don't even know who the fuck he wrestled. I mean, he wrestled a bunch of low-level guys. Like, they're in 1-minute matches. You go and look at Cage Match, and you see he's wrestled Rhett Titus and some fucking jobber on that's not enough, man.
Come on, the legendary Rhett Titus. Come on, man. He's been on like a 6 or 7 match win streak, and it's been mostly, guys that haven't been doing anything on TV. So they're trying now to build him up in that way. And look, I applaud them for trying to build up somebody new, somebody younger. I think that's great. That's not the match for MJF at Wembley Stadium.
No.
MJF and Will Ospreay, that's the match. Do they add Daniel Garcia and make it a three-way? You could do that, but I think that just waters it down unnecessarily. It might be a great wrestling match, but I would much rather see the marquee match is MJF and Ospreay one-on-one. And I would like to see them keep it one-on-one. We're going to see Garcia challenging Ospreay for the international title tomorrow night. And then coming out of that show, we'll see if they keep him as part of this story. Because they've been teasing something with him and MJF. So I'm sure we will get that match at some point. But I mean, my God, that can't be your number 2 match at Wembley Stadium. That's asinine. So MJF and Ospreay is going to be the way. If Ospreay's not going to be in the main event, that's the best match they could do with him.
Why do they tease Daniel Garcia in this MJF Will Ospreay scenario, and then they don't use him at All In? Isn't that stupid?
No, not necessarily, because if they're using him as a means to get MJF and Ospreay together, right? So look at what they did on Wednesday. MJF comes out. He says, look, I've been following you. I've seen your growth. It's been very impressive. I'm going to lay down a challenge here, you and me one-on-one at Wembley, which is an amazing thing for Garcia. And before he could even answer, Ospreay comes out and he upstages MJF and says, I'm going to give you a title match next week. And then MJF is just hanging back in the corner and he looks annoyed. The story isn't so much Garcia and any of these guys. I looked at that and said, okay, this is for a bigger story here where Ospreay is one-upping MJF. And so this might be the first time, and maybe the next time it's MJF trying to upstage him. But that's the story there. It like Garcia was a means to an end. That's how I saw it. So yeah, it's possible he'll still be a part of the story come next month. Could be a 3-way. Maybe he even wins. But to me, it's MJF and Ospreay. That's the match. That's the money match right there. You do that match one-on-one. You add people to it. It's just unnecessary, you know. No one is asking for it to be a 3-way or a 4-way. One-on-one, 2 of the biggest stars, 2 of the biggest baby faces in the entire company, right below your main event. That's a hell of a 1-2 punch for your biggest show of the year.
All In's looking really good. We'll go over what the potential card is shaping up to be like in just a second. I want to get into the next talking point here coming out of Forbidden Door. Jack Perry wins the TNT title. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. They needed a way to get the title on him that wasn't just handing him the championship. Thought the ladder match was really, really good. I think the show needed it at that point when the match took place, because up until that point, I was pretty bored with the show. So Jack Perry won the TNT championship. Britt Baker, she showed up at the end of the Mercedes and Stephanie Vaquer match, which I thought was really good. I think Stephanie actually out-wrestled Mercedes. And Britt Baker showed up at the end.
She looked great.
She looked unbelievable. That DDP yoga honestly really paid off. She looks to be the best shape of her career. And that is now obviously the direction that they're going in for All In. And we'll stop there, Jason. Britt Baker and Mercedes. I said on Sunday when I did my live review that, and I didn't know at the time, and it has been since announced, that Britt Baker will be on the show, as will Mercedes. I want to see a face-to-face. I want to see them take this to the next level almost immediately. I know we got several weeks to go before All In, but I really want them to dabble in this feud, and I really want to have them blur the lines. You know, Mercedes, we all know where she came from. We all know who she was before AEW, and Britt was the first woman in AEW history to get a contract. She was the first woman that they signed. She's been there since day one. She's seen them come and go. She was the leader of that locker room. She held that locker room on her back for several years until she went away for a little bit. And I want to see them blur the lines here. I want to see Britt kind of meddle in the little dose of reality about Mercedes, where she came from. What are you doing here? This is my division. And I really want them to amp it up a little bit. And I think Britt, with her promo style and the way she can be visceral at times, I think she's going to be the perfect verbal promo for Mercedes to really get this to the next level. Because honestly, I feel like Mercedes hasn't really gotten going yet. I mean, she's wrestled very well. I want her to be ingrained in a real story with emotion, and I think Britt Baker's going to be the one to bring that out of her.
I think Britt Baker may end up upstaging her on the mic. You know, that's
Probably.
What I'm looking for. Yeah. I mean, honestly, we haven't really gotten any great Mercedes promos so far, so maybe Britt can step up and challenge her and help her up her game in that way. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do together. Britt hasn't wrestled a match in almost a year. The last match she had was in September. She had that bad back injury. It's good for them to get a big name back in the division. I'm still waiting for Jamie Hayter to come back. Jamie Hayter against Mercedes is a match I'd love to see. Maybe they can even get Hayter back soon, and you'll pair her back up with Britt, and then Mercedes can have somebody. I'm still falling back on the Camille idea. I'm still wondering where Camille is. I still feel the same way. Camille would make a great, bodyguard type for Mercedes. But as far as these two, I would say, do you agree it's the biggest kind of marquee women's match in that division that they could do? I think it All In.
Right now, yeah.
Yeah, you said before, Britt has been the face of the division from day one. When this company first started, she was the one at the press events and on the poster. It really was her and then Nyla Rose, and they were the faces of that women's division from day one. And for her to go in there against Mercedes, who is from the outside, and now she's trying to take over. She's got 2 belts. It's a big match. We'll see what Britt looks like in the ring again. Hasn't wrestled in almost a year. Could be some ring rust there. But the promo is what I'm anxious to see tomorrow night. I have not been impressed by Mercedes promos on TV. And I feel like if Britt goes out there and Britt has a good night, because Britt's had some good promos in the past, she might help kind of light a fire under Mercedes and motivate her to be at her best. And then we get the match at Wembley, and we'll see how it goes. It's a fresh match. This is what I was looking forward to when Mercedes joined the company. There are people on the roster like Saraya and other people that she's already worked with, but there's a lot of fresh opponents for her. Stephanie, right, at Forbidden Door. That was not the first time they wrestled. I actually thought that their first match was better than the match this weekend. And the match this weekend was good, but I thought their first match was a little bit better. But we get to see, her against Britt, her against Jamie when she comes back. Her and Toni Storm, I think, has been done before, but like Mercedes and Mariah at some point, and Statlander. So there's so many new names for her to work with. But Britt, I would say right now, is the biggest one out of the bunch.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Real story could be had here. I agree with Mercedes. The Willow story was fine. The match was very good. It was based on her injury mostly. And I feel like this is going to have a little bit of a different take. There's going to be a little bit more emotion here. And I want Mercedes to step up her game. I feel like she's still stuck in that WWE vortex, the way she comes out, she dances, and she recites her lines as if she's memorizing a WWE promo. This is where I feel like Mercedes and Sasha it's getting lost in translation somewhere. I feel like with AEW and her being here, she should be a little bit more liberated to go out there, take bullet points, and be a little bit more natural, a little bit more human. I just feel like she's kind of reciting what Vince used to write for her, and it's not really translating here in AEW, where everybody just kind of off the cuff. So I want to see that changed a little bit. And like you said, I think Britt's going to bring that out of her, hopefully.
Remember, she has her own personal writer.
I know.
When Jen Pepperman joined the company, I think she did so largely to work with Mercedes. So she may well be scripting stuff out for her. I don't know. The reaction that she got at the UBS Arena, got booed. Was it just the Boston thing, right? Fuck the Celtics.
That's what I thought. I thought it was just Boston. New York being New York.
Well, maybe, but could it have been something more than that? So does she play heel going into Wembley? I think she should be a heel. I think this woman was born to be a heel.
Yes.
I think the CEO gimmick screams heel, right? She comes out there, I'm the CEO. What does that mean? It's a heel gimmick. So do you play her up as a heel? Does she take on more of a heel role going into this match, with Britt being, again, an AEW original, somebody that the AEW fans should be, getting behind, and really lean into Mercedes as a heel? Or do you just play it straight and just let people pick sides?
No, I think you focus on one being a heel and one being a babyface. And the fact that we're in Chicago on Wednesday, I think that's hometown AEW turf. So Britt's going to be the hometown favorite.
Yeah, no, I agree. She should be a heel, 100%.
You mentioned Camille. I do have a note on Camille here, which is kind of laughable. But Fightful Select is reporting that AEW is finally preparing some small aspects for Camille, finally making her debut such as graphics. So they're just now getting to the graphics department for Camille. She's been there for 3 months.
Wow. Someone remembered that she's employed. I'm impressed. Apparently, she's been signed since like February, and I guess they're only first getting around to it. So, yeah, congratulations. It's about damn time.
Man, oh, man. So, yes, Britt's returning. We'll see her tomorrow night. Mercedes is on the show as well. MJF beats Hechicero, which was, I mean, fine for what it was. It's so beneath MJF, but he's in and out, and he's 15 minutes away up the fucking highway. So, there you go. Home pretty quickly for MJF. And then Mariah May, the other big thing that happened on Sunday night, she advances to the Owen semifinals, and she beats Saraya. Gee, I wonder who said that over the last couple of weeks. It was this guy over here, you know?
I don't know.
Everybody complained, oh, she's buried. Yeah, sure thing.
How could they have Saraya pin her? Saraya hasn't done anything lately. I'm like, patience.
I got some...
we had another Owen Hart match, which was, again, my second favorite match.
Yes. How could I forget Bryan Danielson and Shingo Takagi?
That's right. A fantastic match, which now leads to another fantastic match. We actually have two really strong Owen matches tomorrow night. Bryan and Pac. It's going to be great. And I think first time ever. I don't recall them wrestling before. Could be first time ever. The other one is Chris Statlander and Willow Nightingale are having their match. And, one of the reasons I figured Willow's team was going to win on Sunday is because she's losing tomorrow. And then you send Statlander to the finals against Mariah May. So I assume that's the way it's going to play out. But those are two big tournament matches. And then Will Ospreay is defending against Danny Garcia. So they've got a pretty loaded lineup already. I'm sure they're going to add to it. But they got a pretty loaded lineup already for tomorrow night.
And how can we forget Jeff Jarrett's wrestling the wild card tomorrow night as well. Adam Page may be the one showing up tomorrow to hand Double J a loss. So we'll see what happens there. But
be a lot of very upset people who wanted to see Double J go all the way after that video. Give him the win. He should win.
I think they uploaded something with Jay Lethal giving his take on what the Owen means to Jeff Jarrett as well. So they're really going in on this fucking pulling at the heartstrings shit.
Well, look, as they should. And if Hangman is the wild card, and if Hangman is going to be a heel, then great heel heat if he goes in there and he ends the dreams of Jeff Jarrett in the opening round.
I tell you what, man, if Hangman is in there and we get Hangman winning the Owen and beating Bryan, which, listen, Bryan there's a small sliver of chance Bryan could still win, but I don't think he's going to. I think a lot of people have kind of put it in their minds that Bryan and Nigel's the way to go for All In. I think I'm kind of with that. It's just, played out on television with Nigel on Collision and commentary. So
Bryan has said he doesn't want to be in that spot.
Yeah, I know. He said for years he doesn't want to be world champion.
No, but even just recently, he says, "Look, it's too much. It's too much on my body."
Swerve actually said at the scrum he wants to wrestle Bryan at All In. So I don't know how much that's going to play into Tony Khan's mindset.
Yeah, but I think that's just throwing us off the scent, because he's the favorite right now. We don't know who the wild card is. He's the favorite at this moment in the tournament. Yeah. So of course he is.
So if we can predict All In and what we've discussed already from the beginning of this episode of TNT to now, if it shapes up the way it is, look at this card. We have Adam Page versus Swerve Strickland for the AEW Championship, MJF versus Will Ospreay, potentially for the International Championship, because I don't see Will Ospreay losing 2 matches in a row back-to-back, especially to Danny Garcia so early on. Those are your 2 mega main events. Then we get Britt Baker versus Mercedes for the TBS Championship. Toni Storm versus Mariah May for the AEW Women's Championship. I'm assuming we'll get the Young Bucks versus the Acclaim for the Tag Team Championships there, maybe. And then potentially Pac versus Ricochet. That's just, us speculating and fantasy booking. I mean, out of those 6 matches, that's a fucking banger show right there.
Yeah. And that's only,
there's
the card.
Fucking 10 matches left to go. It's like
I was like, you just said those are 6 matches. That's like a quarter of the card. We don't.
Pardon me. This is not a PLE. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No. I was gonna say that's only half the card of that's a quarter of the card so far. Yeah. No. It's looking good. We don't know. Obviously who Jack Perry may defend the TNT title against. I can see him and Darby maybe. We'll see where the rest of the card falls, but as far as the key matches, those seem to be the obvious ones. The other one, and I don't get the sense it's going to happen. I hope maybe there's a small chance it could, but I don't think Kenny's going to be ready. Would be Kenny and Okada.
I mean, that would just put over the top. Title. That may be the best fucking show that they ever put on if that's the card.
I mean, that would be amazing. But that was pretty major surgery that he had, so I don't know that he'll be back in time. But that would be incredible if they could pull that off.
Well, we got more AEW news here, guys. In relation to Mercedes, and Miss Mone has said she has creative control in AEW. Now, this was in an interview with TMZ Sports. Cameras caught up to Mercedes ahead of her match with Stephanie Vaquer at Forbidden Door. Mone was asked if she has finally found the creative control in AEW, which she was missing in WWE, and she explained that opportunities are endless for her in AEW. She says, I feel like here at AEW, all of my dreams and opportunity is just endless. So, of course, being the TBS champion and this Sunday at Forbidden Door, I'm about to be a two-time champion, which she is. I'm going to be both the TBS and New Japan Strong champion. So, yes, this little creativity that I have of taking all the belts and going global, it's beautiful. And then she was pressed again, and she said, yes, I have creative control, but I work with Tony Khan very closely, so it's great, and it's a great combo. Now, again, take it with a grain of salt. She might have been in character here. I didn't physically hear the interview myself. I just read the transcript of whatever she said here. But if she does have creative control, Jason, I mean, clearly she's given herself a win over Willow right out of the gate and is the TBS champion. Her second match or second title match in, she's winning the New Japan Strong Women's Championship. She beat Stephanie Vaquer. She's a double champion now. Now she's wrestling Britt Baker at All In, which is, like you said, the biggest match that she could possibly do right now at that show. If she does have creative control, she's certainly not hiding it. And if she does have creative control, is that a bad thing for AEW in the women's division? Because I always looked at Mercedes as someone who has the division first in her mind and then her second. Is this a different Mercedes? Are we looking at somebody that's putting herself first over the division? How do you make this comment out to be from Mercedes here?
Well, again, I didn't see it. I'm just going by, as you're reading the comment. If it was in character, I think it's stupid, because if she's in character, what the hell is she talking about creative control? Yeah. That's just silly to me. It's like late stage WCW nonsense. I hear creative control, I think of Hogan. And I think that's a terrible idea. So I don't know if that's the situation here. I think that giving someone 100%, giving one talent 100% full creative control over what their character does is a terrible move. I don't think anybody should have full 100% creative control. I think that the promoter, in this case Tony Khan, should be more open to creative collaboration with the talent. I don't know if it has to be spelled out in a contract necessarily. And I do get the sense that you have a lot of people who do have input, if not control, into their creative in AEW. And I don't think that's inherently a bad thing, but this idea of creative control, if it's like a clause in a contract, I think is just a fucking terrible idea. And you're just opening Pandora's box. Even if she has the best interest of the division in mind, okay, you gave it to her. She's out there talking about it in interviews. So now you've opened yourself up to other people when they want to come to AEW saying, well, if she can have creative control, then I want creative control.
Yeah.
Right. And now it's just forget about it. Now you're just going to, like I said, you're opening Pandora's box. You can't close it. So the concept of that, I think, is terrible. But I don't think you can say that she has, whether or not she has her own interest in mind only or the division. She hasn't been around for that long. They were always going to get that title on her and establish her at first. They've done that now. As time goes on, we'll be able to tell if she goes on a tear where she just wins all of her matches and it's at the expense of, the story. If it's to, the detriment of the company, then we'll have our answer. It's too early to tell, though. She was always going to get pushed hard when they first brought her in. She's only had, 3 matches?
Yeah.
4 matches, maybe? You can't answer that question. But this whole concept of creative collaboration is great, and people having more input into their stories and what they do is great. And clearly she's very happy there. But creative control, as I hear that term, that's not a good idea.
And also, guys, she's a major commodity. She is now holding a New Japan Championship, which Jason said was basically made for her. They are going to share that equity there with Mercedes and what she's built up for herself. They're going to share that across both promotions, and New Japan's going to get some kickback on that too. They're going to use her. They're going to sell some tickets by using her likeness and her getting over there and wrestling there. So it's a lot to do with the partnership as well. So like Jason said, if she does have creative control, I mean, it could be a problem somewhere down the line, but she was going to be in this spot whether she had creative control or not. So that she's the biggest name in the industry right now. So that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, if we get to a point where Tony Khan is pitching ideas to her and she's like, "That don't work for me, brother," then we got a problem. Yeah.
Speaking of Mercedes, she was at the airport and she was at LaGuardia, apparently leaving the city after Forbidden Door. And there was a report that blew up on social media again with Shane McMahon and Mercedes reportedly running into each other on Monday. PW Insider has confirmed. This is PW Insider, by the way, folks. This is not some random fucking geek on social media. Mike Johnson and PW Insider confirmed with multiple sources that Mone and Shane McMahon were seen Monday morning at LaGuardia Airport in New York City as they were headed to separate flights. The two reportedly were seen speaking to each other, and one source confirmed that they had talk of some kind about AEW. Now, there's no word on the nature of that talk, though Conrad Thompson, take it with a grain of salt, had said late last month that he had been told McMahon had interest in appearing for AEW. Now, it's been reported that McMahon has not been mentioned in AEW at a high level, and Tony Khan said last week that he's never met Shane, but that he has a lot of respect for him and has always seen him as someone he would welcome into AEW. For the record, PW Insider was told that McMahon, who lives in the area, was not seen backstage at Forbidden Door. I know, Jason, you vehemently said that you don't want to see Shane McMahon in AEW. I, on the other hand, being that this is a debate show, I would love to see it just to see how everybody would react. And I honestly think it would inject some fucking life into the storyline with the Young Bucks because I don't know what the conclusion of this is going to be, and I don't really know what the fuck is going on. But Shane McMahon coming on in and kind of interjecting that power struggle there, and we get him on television to give us a new take on what could happen with that story. I'd like to see it, but this is a fucking nothing burger, man. This is two friends talking, and I like you and I talked about off air before the show. It is PW Insider, so there could be some smoke to the fire, but this ultimately is a nothing burger. Nothing.
No, I mean, smoke to the fire means it happened. I believe that it happened, but even what Mike Johnson is reporting, I mean, what did he report? They bumped into each other in the airport. They had a brief conversation. AEW came up. It could have been Shane saying, "Hey, how are you enjoying your time there so far?" "Oh, I'm having a lot of fun. Thanks for asking." I mean,
yeah. My father fucking treated you like shit. How you doing? How you doing nowadays?
Yeah. Can you get me a job? Like, no. I mean, what do you think they talked about? Like, come on now. Can you get me a meeting with Tony? Like, no. I mean, it was two people who bumped into each other at the airport. It reminds me of, like, you get this every now and then, maybe more so back in the day, where wrestlers, and they're all friends, and the wrestlers would always laugh at this, but you'd have people from WWF and WCW, and occasionally they would bump into each other at the airport. When this guy was heading out, someone's coming in, or they're leaving on a different flight, and somebody sees them, and it becomes a whole big story. Oh my God, so-and-so was talking to so-and-so. And it's like, they're all friends, and they bumped into each other, and they said hello. But it gets blown into something so much bigger. And this is no different. I'm sure that, they exchange some pleasantries, and how are you, and how have you been doing, and congrats on all your success over in the other company. And then she went on her way, and he went on. He did the little Shane dance onto the tarmac, and off he went. So yeah, it's a whole lot of nothing. We talked about the Shane rumors that were going around previously. I have no interest in seeing any of the McMahons on AEW television. I don't care if they want to, use Shane in the Elite storyline. I think the storyline's a dud anyway. I mean, it's just not. It just doesn't work. And even if you brought Shane in, and now he's getting all this television time every week on TV, I don't need to see it. I've had my fill of the McMahons. This is a McMahon-free zone. That's what AEW was conceived of to be in the first place. They have enough talent that they aren't using or aren't using properly. And so, no, I don't have, beyond the first appearance, which would be surreal, just to see him walk out through one of the tunnels on Dynamite, I have no interest in seeing Shane McMahon in AEW. I don't think he is going to AEW. I think all these stories is much ado about nothing, but far be it from me to, take a story that people want to blow up into something big and bring it back down to reality. But, people get excited about this stuff and they think, they start fantasy booking, and we're not going to see Shane McMahon on AEW television.
Like you said, it's a McMahon-free zone is what AEW is. And I don't think Tony Khan, I think Tony Khan feels the same way. And I think it would open up that box for him to be a hypocrite after the comments he said about the McMahons and about WWE to allow one of them into the company and get on airtime. So not going to happen.
And look, the comments that Tony has made about Vince has nothing to do with Shane.
No, I know.
So it's not even that. I'm sure Shane is a nice enough guy, but to bring him in as an on-air character and have him and devote television time to him, like we've been down this road before, and to devote television time to him, or people who say, well, no, it wouldn't just be as a performer, it could be creatively, behind the scenes, when there's no evidence that Shane McMahon was some great creative force behind the scenes or had some great creative mind. If he was, I'd be more open to the idea. I'd say, you know what, maybe that could be a real benefit to AEW and bring in Shane, behind the scenes. So I don't know where people are getting that from, because I had some pushback on that. Like, no, we're not talking just about as an on-air, but it could be behind the scenes. Okay, doing what? Like, he doesn't have experience as like an agent or a producer or a trainer or anything like that. Like, what would he be doing? What will he bring to the table that is going to be so immensely helpful to AEW that's going to turn things around or turn this story around? It's just people getting excited because of his last name.
Tony Khan barely listens to the people he's got there now. He's going to listen to fucking Shane McMahon.
All the issues that AEW has that you want to list out and point to, Shane McMahon is not going to solve any of them. So let's leave that alone.
Penta, free agent contract news on Penta as his AEW contract ticks away here. This is being reported by the Wrestling Observer. He actually did Penta, spoke on Comiendo Carnitas podcast, I'm assuming. He was coy when asked about whether WWE has their eyes on him. And he says, and I quote, "I prefer to focus on my present, and my present is currently with AEW. If any company like WWE wanted me and wanted to offer me something, I would need to evaluate that because there are a lot of interests coming my way." Now, Jason, Penta is 39 years old. You and I have seen him several times in House of Glory. We know how good he is based on what we've seen personally and called of him personally. We see him on AEW television. We know how good he is. 39 years old, man. He's not some spring chicken anymore. Look, he's great. He is in fantastic shape. He still moves around incredibly well for his age. He's not old, but 40 years old, pushing 40, bro. I mean, this could realistically be his last big money. I got to go out and get that biggest contract I can before I get to that age where my body starts to kind of deteriorate and I can't do what I was doing at 40, at 45. How much of that is going to play a factor into where he goes? And can you see him actually taking a huge deal from WWE over AEW, or do you think Tony Khan's going to give him that big deal to stay home?
I think Tony Khan will give him, a big deal. Just a matter of, is he happy there? What he's doing now, which isn't that much, he's not factored into anything really at the moment. Is he happy? It's hard to tell with some of these guys. You hear from them sometimes and they'll do an interview or whatever and they sound like they're unhappy with their position, but then they may end up re-signing anyway. So is it the money that's most important to them? Is it creative? Probably a combination of both. I can't get in his head. I don't know what matters more to him. Does he want to continue to work with his brother? Because if he goes, then there's no more Phoenix and Penta.
Yeah.
Does he enjoy being able to work independently? As we know, he works outside of AEW as well. He works for a lot of different promotions. He's not going to be able to do that in WWE, not on a regular basis. Maybe they'll loan him out to TNA, but it's just a different situation than the one he has in AEW. He has a lot more freedom in that respect in AEW, and I'm sure he's still getting paid very well. He's not getting paid peanuts. So what is his priority? Is he looking at it the way that you just described and said, man, if I don't if they have interest in me, which they would be foolish not to, and if they make me an offer, and it's a good paying offer, but I got to choose between these two companies, but man, I may never get this shot again. I don't know. I don't know what kind of decision he's going to make. I didn't think Okada was going to make the jump from New Japan. I thought he was going to be a lifer over there, and he took a chance on himself, and he moved to the States, and now he's in AEW, and he's doing very well for himself so far in AEW.
Bitch.
Bitch. That's right. Ooh, bitch, right? Fucking great. And I have no doubt in my mind that, Penta, under whatever name he goes under, would, I think, do well because he just has a unique look and he has a cool factor to him. And at the end of the day, when you have somebody who he's cool, and the fans are going to want to cheer for him and get behind him and the whole, Cero Miedo and all that. He's got the cool mask and the makeup and everything. I think he could do well. Now, he would need a manager. I think it would be best if he had somebody with him. Even in Lucha Underground for a while, he had Vampiro on his side, and he's got Alex Abrahantes with him in AEW. So you put somebody with him, and you have him go out there and do his thing, and I think he would do well. I just don't know what's in his head right now. I can't get in his head, and he may not want that separation with his brother. Maybe that's important to him, but we'll just have to wait and see. I think that he's going to get a really good offer, though, to stay from Tony Khan, and he'll have to make his mind up. I think my understanding is that his deal may be up in August. I think the end of August.
It doesn't say here, but
I'd read that a few weeks ago. So.
Yeah. Between August and September this year,
yeah. So it's coming up. It's coming up in the next couple of months. He's going to have to make a decision about what matters most to him. He signs with WWE or AEW. It's going to be probably a 3 or 4 year deal.
Yeah,
that's what he's looking at, and then he'll be in his mid-40s at that point. That's what he has to weigh. What's most important to him.
I said the same thing about Okada. I'd love to see how WWE would have handled Okada under the Triple H administration. I'm going to say the same thing about Penta. I'd love to see how they handle him. I think he could be a money-making machine for them. He's, like you said, he's got that cool factor. I could see dollar signs in WWE's eyes, selling merch with his likeness on it and that whole catchphrase and everything, the gloves and all that. I mean, it's like a fucking money printing machine over there. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to see how it works out over there, but I do think he stays because there's a lot of freedom that I don't think you could put a price on, and he could work this indie, he could work that indie, he could work AEW, he could just be himself, and I don't think
Mexico.
I don't think he's going to be able to do that in WWE. So
no, he's not. He's not going to be able to go on tour Mexico and then come back, or if they send him to the Tokyo Dome for that show they're going to be doing in January, he's not going to be able to do that type of stuff. Do they bring him in on an NXT deal? Which I think would be a waste. I would want him on the main roster. So who knows? Maybe they make him an offer, but it's to bring him into the NXT initially. We don't know.
And one final news and note here from AEW, guys, before we get into your super chats. A new TV deal for AEW with Warner Brothers Discovery apparently is imminently. This is coming from The Observer. And as previously reported, Warner Brothers Discovery CEO and President David Zaslav, TNT Sports head Louis Silberwasser would like to keep the 5 hours of AEW television per week on TNT and TBS with Dynamite, Rampage, and Collision. Now, the figures that have been talked about are reportedly more than the estimated $110 million annually. AEW has been with Warner Brothers since its launch in 2019. And in the latest Wrestling Observer newsletter, Dave Meltzer reported that there are expectations the deal would be announced imminently, maybe even before the expiration of the exclusive window for negotiation that is just about over. And Meltzer says, I will say that we've gotten people who say they know from all over saying completely contradictory things about the talks. Meltzer continued to note how AEW President Tony Khan has suggested the new deal is good news and a game changer, while his rivals have been quiet on the front, and it's opposite because that's how the game is played. AEW obviously is in the midst of this, and I kind of put it in my head that I think we may get something around All In. I don't know if that's for sure or not. I think that would be the perfect time to announce something like that, being that it's their biggest show of the year. But It's reported, Jason, that's going to be more than the 110 million. I think you and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I think I threw out 125 million. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you mentioned like 150 million or something like that. So the exclusive window is closing. And I know you said that it may be in their best interest if they actually let the exclusive windows lapse, and then maybe they do some negotiating elsewhere to see if they get a bigger deal, potentially.
Well, no. Well, I said that's one of the things that Tony Khan might want to consider doing, but there's a lot of risk involved.
Yeah.
If you do that, and I would say that if Warner Brothers Discovery is interested in renewing and they're in the final stages of trying to negotiate something, as long as he's getting an increase that he feels is going to really set the company up the way that it needs to be set up for the next several years, then he should take the deal. If for some reason he feels like they're lowballing him or, it's not the money that he was hoping for, you can let that window lapse if he thinks that he can get interest from somewhere else. It's a risk. It's a risk that he runs. I don't know who else may have interest. If there's a streaming service that may have interest in them. You look at the deal WWE made with Netflix, $5 billion. They're not going to get $5 billion, but, could they get a lucrative streaming deal? But if the interest is there, and he's always talked about, we have a great relationship with Mr. David Zaslav, and it's so weird when he talks about this. Mr. Zaslav is, he's very, he's very careful to pay respect to him and to the company. Anytime he talks about them, he doesn't want to speak out of turn.
Like he's applying the chapstick to get ready for what.
Well, hey, you do what you got to do, I guess, when you're running a company that is probably spending millions upon millions of dollars in talent contracts and various expenses.
Well, the rumor is 104 million a year per talent. I mean,
per talent?
No, for talent.
Okay.
Per year. No.
Talent.
$104 million budget for the year for talent. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I was about to say, wait a minute. Now.
Everybody's making $104 million a year. They'd be fucking bankrupt tomorrow.
No wonder Mercedes is dancing around every week when we see her on TV. Yeah. So, I mean, they're spending a lot of money. Tony's talked about how much money he'll spend just to license a song for a show. He needs to make sure he's bringing in enough money to be able to maintain the roster at the size that it is. Otherwise, and I've mentioned this before, there's going to be a reckoning in this company, and there's going to be a lot of people who lose their jobs. If he doesn't get the increase he needs, there will be people who will have to inevitably be cut from the roster. So he wants to make sure he gets a significant increase. He keeps talking about it as if he knows it's a done deal, but it's not done. Like every time I hear him talk about it, he's pretty, positive about how this is all going to turn out. I said at the beginning of the year, I do a prediction show every year on my podcast. And I said back in January, I said they're going to renew. I think they're going to get at least double or triple what they were making on their existing deal. And I think it'll be a 3 or 4 year deal. And I still feel the same way. I think whatever they're making now, and I don't remember offhand if it was $45 million a year. I don't remember.
That's what I thought I saw too. 45 million or so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think back then when they made the deal, that was the report going around. It was 45 million a year for 4 years, maybe. I am expecting them to at least double, if not triple that, and I think that they will sign a longer term, maybe 3 to 5 year deal to keep themselves with Warner Brothers Discovery. A lot of people have been talking about it like, well, because the ratings are down and the attendance is down in a lot of places, it's all doom and gloom. Look, they got a lot of problems, and the numbers speak for themselves. The numbers are down in a lot of ways, but Warner Brothers Discovery, by all accounts, has been very happy and very satisfied with the relationship that they've had. AEW is reliable programming. I think what really also the pandemic showed, and this is for both WWE and AEW, is that they're a pandemic-proof product. So whether it's another pandemic or if something were to happen and they needed programming to plug in on television, it was very reliable, right? I mean, if they didn't have wrestling, what would they have had?
Yeah.
Same thing with USA. If not for WWE, what would they put on in that slot? And I think during that period, wrestling really proved to be a great commodity for a lot of these stations. So, yeah, I can believe that they are happy overall with AEW and they don't want to lose them. They lost the NBA, seemingly. I mean, there were some reports they would try to make like a Hail Mary pass, basically, for a fourth media rights package. I don't think that's going to happen. So they're not going to get NBA money, but there's going to be a huge void that has to be filled. And I don't think they want to lose them. I think that they're happy enough that they want to keep them around. And that's good for Tony. Because if he doesn't get this deal, that's going to be it's not only very bad for him and the company, that's very bad for wrestling overall. Yeah. And that's the most important thing. I've always said this, whatever you think of the product, you don't even have to like the AEW product. You don't have to watch it. You could think whatever you want, but everybody should be rooting for them to get a new deal, and for the shows to still exist, because it's very possible that they wouldn't without this money that they're getting from WBD. They need that money.
It's going to be very interesting to see this develop, guys. And no matter how you look at it, Jason put it perfectly. AEW needs to exist. It's better when it's here, not only for the industry, for us content creators as well. And
everybody.
Talent. It's going to be an interesting story to follow. But we are about to wrap up here. We're going to get into your super chats. Thank you guys for the 2,400 in here on a Tuesday night. Thank you very much for spending your Tuesday night with us. We're going to get into your questions and comments here as we wrap up episode 55. Please follow us on social media. Everything you need is linked down in the description for social media and YouTube. Go follow Jason on his YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button. Nearing 81,000 subscribers over there, so make sure you guys go show him some love there. And please hit that thumbs up. We got 871 likes. I would appreciate if we get as close to 1,000 as possible. We're almost there, so if you guys have not, please do so. Hit that thumbs up. Michael Krause with the $2 super chat. JD and Jason, do you remember your first podcast? I do. I was in a basement apartment in the Bronx. Had action figures and stuffed animals and toys behind me, and a big winged eagle replica belt. And now I am sitting behind in front of a green screen with this beautiful graphic work by Deviate Designs done for me. I don't know.
And now I have the eagle over my shoulder.
And there you go.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, the first sound off I ever did was actually, because I do my show on Sundays, and the first sound off I ever did was on Tuesday. And it was after an episode of Raw where, if you remember, Steve Austin made a cameo appearance. He was promoting some, I think, straight to DVD movie he had made, and he hosed down Santino Marella might have been milk, or maybe it was beer, but he hosed them down with something. And anyway, I did a show the very next day. That was episode 1. It was 7 minutes long. And now they're a hell of a lot longer than that.
I wish I had episode 1 of what I did on OTS. Apparently, YouTube ate it up and spit it out. I don't have it anymore. I don't even have the file. I lost it. Yeah, my PC at the time shit the bed, and I lost it. So, if you guys go and look hard enough, I think you can find episode 2 on YouTube. So, I guess you can consider that the first episode. Thank you, Michael. It's a great question. Tanmay with 54 months. Thank you, brother. Longest subscriber, VIP, channel member here on the channel, man. I appreciate you. Moretz with 25 months. Thank you, bro. Dom Joseph with a 199. What do y'all think of Jada Parker? Shawn Michaels has great taste in who he chooses on his show. That's all I'll say.
Yes. And well, you said that better than I was going to. And I from what I saw of her, she was in the ladder match at Battleground. Yeah, she was good there. So she's one of those women who are on the ascent in that women's division in NXT. They always seem to just, as they call people up, they called up Tiffany and they've called up Lyra and people. They always have new women that are just right there, that they're ready to just replenish in that division. So they're doing well, with their female recruits and everything right now in NXT. And soon enough, I think we'll have Sol Ruka on the main roster. Looking forward to that.
Guys, if you see me move my microphone frantically away from my face, it's because I had a spider literally speed across my mouse pad, and I had to squash it with my seltzer mug. So there you go. I don't do bugs.
Was it a tiny spider?
No, it was substantial. It was the size of my fingernail.
It wasn't like a daddy long legs, was it?
No. Those are the worst.
Okay.
Dead. Thank you. Thank you, Dom Joseph. Michelle Moran. Fucking bugs,
I just saw it because I have a delay. I have a delay on my screen, so I just saw him the fuck away.
Ridiculous, man. I don't know where they come from. There's no open windows. It's whatever, man. Fucking ridiculous. Michelle with the $2 super chat. If Cody and Rock at WrestleMania, then who wins and who main events night one? It's a good question. Cody Rock night 2 for sure, because Rock ain't working night 1. Working night 1 in the main event. I would say, listen, man, if I had the pen, I'd do Roman Reigns and Jacob Fatu.
I don't know. I feel like they're gonna he would have gotten to this year on night 1, but I think Punk will probably get his first WrestleMania main event next year. It'll probably be on night 1.
I am okay
maybe with Rollins. Maybe we get the match we were supposed to get this year.
I am okay with that. Let's see. Dev to Dust with a $10 super chat. Did you watch the 1994 finals segment against the Knicks and Rockets? Monster did experience a heartbreaking Mets loss to the Yankees like JD did with the Braves in 1996 World Series. The 1994 finals against the Knicks and Rockets?
Yeah, it was New York and Houston, and what I remember is that was when the Bronco chase happened. And I remember they were like simultaneously on screen at the same time. They were showing both. I remember that.
Was that Goldust and Roddy Piper?
No, it was the actual Bronco chase,
okay.
the real one. And then of course the Knicks didn't end too well for the Knicks. The name Olajuwon is still ringing in my head after all these years. Hakeem Olajuwon.
I definitely don't want to go back and think of the 96 World Series being up 2-0 and then losing 4 straight. No, thank you. Awful. I had to show up at high school, with everybody being a Yankees fan, berating me. No, thank you. Paul Van Tassel with the $5 super chat. I would like Toasted tomorrow is going to be an emotional day for me and my family as we laid my dad to rest and also stay this holiday weekend. Paul, I do remember you told me, brother, earlier last week that your dad passed away. I am incredibly sorry, and I hope you are holding up well. You know, both communities here, Jason's community and my community. If you need anyone to talk to, there's plenty of good people, bro. Thoughts and prayers with you, my man.
Yeah, my condolences.
Michelle with a $2 super chat. If Hikuleo is with Solo, then who teams with Roman? I haven't even thought about Hikuleo, honestly. I mean, I don't know where he's fitting in. It makes no sense for him not to be with his Tongan brothers, but who knows?
Yeah, the only thing I could think of is he ends up with them, and Fatu ends up taking over at some point, and Solo ends up, with Roman and the Usos, and we get the OG Bloodline.
Kevin Dunn's Beaver with a $2 super chat. NXT has been exciting and it's refreshing. TNT rocks. Thank you, Kevin Dunn's Beaver.
We always have the Beaver sighting on my stream, so it's good that he's migrated over to yours.
Fixes a bind with a $10 super chat. Solomon, with Shane in AEW, you would be proven right. Years ago on the Sound Off, you predicted the future would still be all about the McMahons. This would be a ratings war between the McMahons.
Yeah, you'd have Paul McMahon on one side and Shane McMahon on the other. It's like, we had our fill of the McMahons, and AEW needs to be able to stand up on its own 2 feet and come up with an interesting storyline. We're talking about the elite stuff, without having to rely on Shane McMahon. So, yes. And this is also, by the way, this is not the same Shane McMahon of 10 or 15 years ago.
No.
I mean, do you remember a lot of the segments that Shane was in the last time we saw him in? He looked like he was going to blow, okay? Beat red, dripping sweat. I was worried for the guy. I thought he was going to drop where he stood. This is not the same Shane.
JB with a $7.99. JD, please tell us what you really think of... I'm not going to answer this question, man. Listen, Jason and I have a great thing here. I'm not going to give you my thoughts on any other podcasters in the community, okay? Thank you for the $7.99. I'm already in enough trouble. Who is this? Mr. Sim Ranch Anna 123 with a $4.99. Me and my nephew who passed away always watched you. We admired you leaving the jewelers and taking a chance. You're the realest. Who's your top 5 heels ever? Well, I appreciate that, bro. Listen, it was tough, man, early on doing the 9 to 5 thing and not knowing what was going to go and happen with me. It was tough. Feeling like you're working a dead-end job. I'm glad you guys have stuck with me, though. It's been a long journey, and I wouldn't have changed a single thing. But my top 5 heels, I don't know, man. That's a tough question. I have to think about it. I love heel HBK back in the early 90s. He was great. Heel Bret Hart was great.
Yeah. I mean, the greatest heel, in my opinion, at least in WWE, greatest heel of all time is Mr. McMahon.
Yeah. He's up there for sure.
You got to have him. Yeah, you got to have him on that list. And, it's Jake Roberts as a heel. He's up there, too.
I swear to God, there was another spider.
So you killed the other one, so you're sure this would be a different one?
This is, I don't know. It looked like it was on my phone. I don't know. It might have been a pair. It might have been a couple.
Uh-oh. It could be a nest. It could be a nest.
It could be a nest.
Oh, boy. This is like your worst nightmare come to life.
This is crazy. I don't know.
This is your Peter Parker origin story. We're seeing it play out here live on the air.
I don't know, man. Thank you for the $4.99. Hiru with a $5 super chat. I'm fine with them burning through the men's briefcase. I don't need to see Gunther looking vulnerable every week for a tease of a cash-in. That's a good point.
That's a good point.
Andy V. Romney with a $9.99. What's good, Titans? Question for both of you. What Eddie match was more influential in today's wrestling versus Ray at Halloween Havoc or Lesnar at No Way Out? Keep up the excellent work, you two. That's a good question, man. I'll let you go first. I think the Lesnar was more influential for Eddie.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, that was, and it was an emotional match too. That's just that whole win and where it took place and his family in the front row and everything and his one world title reign. I mean, that's a hard one to top.
Yeah. Dan McDaniels, Dan Noodles with a $1.99. Gunther versus Seth is the match I want to see at SummerSlam. I don't blame you, but I think we made valid points. I think Jason made some valid points about why Priest and Gunther's going to happen, and I think that revolves around Roman Reigns returning and them doing Cody versus Solo. And I think we brought a lot of good points to the discussion. So,
and you can't. One thing we didn't talk about, you can't discount the possibility that maybe, because I don't know what else Seth does on that show.
Yeah,
it's always possible it could turn into a 3-way if we don't get a real finish, in this match on Saturday, that Seth could end up being worked in there in some way. I mean, it's Gunther's shot, but that doesn't mean that Seth doesn't get added to the match.
Fixes a bind with the 20 months. Thank you, bro. JD, it's fine if you still rock the Dr. Disrespect music. I hate when people try to dictate your reactions. It's never enough to satisfy the mob. All I'll say, bro, it's disappointing where that entire situation ended up. It's going to be tough for him to come back, if anything, from that. I don't think he will. He may end up on Rumble for all we know. Who the fuck knows? Or Kick. They like to give those types of people some platform. David Thiering with a $100 super chat. Thank you earlier, brother. We appreciate your generosity very much. Beyond the Script. Yes, Beyond the Script with the $4.99. I've been told Roman comes back August 2nd. Do I get a follow if I'm right? Love you, JD and Jason. I don't know where you heard that from, but SummerSlam is August
3rd or 5th, whatever that Saturday is.
Yeah.
So I think it's August 3rd. So yeah, no, Roman's not coming back on SmackDown the night before SummerSlam. If anything, it would be the night of SummerSlam.
Yeah. Phil with 31 months. What's up, guys? Great episode as always. Thoughts on McIntyre winning Money in the Bank only to unsuccessfully cash in on the same night because of Punk, TNT for life. Phil, we talked about that almost at the top of the show. We do think that's going to happen. He's going to cash in, and Punk will be there to shatter his dreams, as always. That guy, Jaeger, with a $2 super chat. How about Stephanie Vaquer? She is amazing. I said this on Sunday. When and if Stephanie is ready to come to America and make her presence known here full time, I will be waiting. She is amazing.
She's great. She's great. And again, I thought the match she had with Mercedes last year was even better. And this one was really good. So I hope we get to see more of her.
I don't know what the fuck is flying around in here now, man. There's like a bug haven in here. Holy shit.
Oh, shit. Maybe they grew wings and they get flying spiders. What is going on?
I don't know. Padman with a $4.99. Wyatt 6 reminds me of the concept of Jigsaw, specific victims who have done others wrong and are met with suffering to change their ways. Cheers, fellas. That Bo Dallas segment was fucking great last night. I actually enjoyed that more than week one. And his explanation as to why he and the family are here, you know, and he talked about others basically walking away from their families. I love that explanation, man. It's going to be quite the interesting situation to see how they are integrated in all aspects of Raw. So we might have got a glimpse of that last night.
Yeah, and it opens up different possibilities for who they might target next. You know, we know they're going after Chad Gable, but what about Jey Uso? You know, What about Dominic Mysterio, right? He cast his family aside. So we got the explanation as far as that. We didn't get the individual therapy video with, you know, Dexter Lumis or Eric Rowan yet. We still might. But we got the explanation for why, you know, why they're doing what they're doing and who they're targeting. And it's just really well done. And Bo Dallas, you know, in these videos, just his performance. We talked about Heyman on SmackDown, but I think Bo has been crushing it so far in these videos.
He's been great. Love it. Yeah. The Juliet 316 with a $2 super chat. Happy birthday to Bret the Hitman Hart. Yes.
Oh my God, of course, yes. The best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. I don't even know how old he is, I should know. He's probably mid-60s. I'm gonna actually look it up right now.
Still looks good.
Wherever, you know what? The thing about Bret now, whenever I see him, is he looks like he's just enjoying life. You know, he's not hitting up all the different conventions and putting himself out there too much. He's just enjoying time with his wife and his kids now. I think they're running their own promotion, I think, up there in Canada.
He's got his own bar, doesn't he?
He has his own bar, yeah. In fact, the Winged Eagle title that he won is on display in that bar.
Nice.
So, yeah, he's 67. So, happy birthday to Bret.
I came across the clip of him beating Ric Flair in Saskatchewan for the WWF title.
Yeah. Everybody jumped to their feet.
Oh, yeah.
Remember Earl Hebner with the exaggerated, call for the bell, and everybody. Imagine being in the crowd for that show. Like, at the time, Bret was a tag team guy mostly, and he beats Ric Flair to win the world title. Like, what a mind fuck that must have been.
Beyond the Scripts with a $10 super chat. He says, I know this is wrestling, but Trump's sentencing has been postponed till September 18th. Judge Merchan said if at that point, if it's even necessary. Beyond the Script, I appreciate your generosity, brother. No politics, please. No politics. I did watch the debate, though. It was a fucking clown show. Vinny with a $4.99. This Bloodline stuff is absolutely amazing. I truly hope Heyman gets one babyface run with Roman before he retires and not turn on him.
Yeah, that would be. I had people telling me, they think Heyman's going to turn because he's done this before. Like, I just think that would be terrible.
Yeah, nobody wants to see that.
No.
It will be interesting to see Punk's dynamic when him and Roman do feud, though, I will say.
Well, he made that comment a couple weeks ago. He said even Roman knew, because I told him, like, Punk's off limits. He's my friend.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting line.
That guy Yeager with a $5 super chat, knowing how everything played itself out. Do you guys still believe that Cody should have won the belt at WrestleMania 39? No. I'm glad he didn't. Otis. Yeah, Jason, I'm sorry.
Well,
I thought your silence meant you didn't care about the question, honestly.
Yeah, well,
it's over already. It's like, come on.
I was pondering this. I still feel like there was it just would have been a very different situation. We probably would have gotten Rock and Roman this year, not for the title.
Yeah.
So, look, I'm glad things played out this year the way that they did. We'll find out in the documentary tomorrow, all the twists and turns that got us there. I still feel like it could have worked. Things would be very different, but I'm glad things are where they are now. That's the best answer I can.
Otis with 30 months. What's up, family? Killer Show, JD, and Solid Monster. Thoughts on when Rhea and Roman return? OTS Bloodline and hashtag Bay Bay Family. I would love if they both return at SummerSlam. I don't know if Rhea will be back, but Roman, I'm sure, will be back at SummerSlam. Rhea might be a little bit longer, but she'll be back this year.
Yeah. She's going to kill Liv Morgan when she comes back.
Oh, yeah.
So that's going to be fun.
We got... Ooh. I just touched dead spider carcass. Ugh. I gotta get the fuck
Well,
out
you're
of here.
really going through it tonight, aren't you?
Yeah. Man, when I see one, it's like... I just get skeeved out. I think they're everywhere.
Well, they eat other bugs, though. You know that, right?
I know.
I'm just saying. It's a little bit different when you're laying in bed and you look up, you wake up and you look up and there's one on the ceiling right above your head.
Yeah.
That's different.
Yeah,
that they gotta go. Like that's it. That's a line that you can't cross.
Yeah, that's the worst. Good thing I got cats here that take care of that for me. They'll eat them up, hopefully. The learning sicko, Dr. Bropio with the $2 super chat. Fox just censored my super chat. Thanks, guys.
Fucking Fox.
Fucking Jericho, man. Fuck out of here. Rich Mulatto with a $4.99. WWE's on fire. I consumed 60 hours plus of vintage OTS episodes last week, and I'm attending my 100th Kenny Chesney show this weekend. 2024 is incredible. Wow. I mean, can someone see someone 100 times?
That's crazy. He must be traveling all over the country.
Maybe. I don't know. Yeah. I'm sorry that you consume 60 hours of my content, Rich. Thank you.
I don't think I've ever listened to 100 minutes of Kenny Chesney, but I'm happy for you.
And not one song on my end. I don't know.
I have nothing against the guy. I'm sure he's great, but yeah, I can't tell you a single song.
Ali, 23 months. Hey, JD, question. Do you see the Wyatt 6 come out to full Bray Wyatt theme, Shatter, or just that one single piano key when they make their entrance? I think that's their thing. That's going to be the entrance, the one piano key.
When Bo or Howdy wrestles and has their first full entrance, I would like for them to use Shatter. I just think it's such a great song.
Yeah.
It'd be kind of a shame if it never gets played again. So when he makes an entrance, I think they should change it up a little bit by having it be the full song.
CRJ 209 with a $4.99. In your opinion, who was the better in-ring performer, Bret Hart or Shawn Michaels? I'm gonna go Bret Hart.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Bret guy, and I'm not taking anything away from Shawn. Shawn was great in his own way. They were different performers. Shawn was flashier. I don't think of Bret as a flashy performer, but I mean, Bret is he's the GOAT. I mean, there's a reason why there's so many people who are in wrestling right now who cite him as their influence, and they talk about his matches, and his body of work speaks for itself. So I'm a Bret guy.
Mr. Team Bring It 123 with a $1.99. What's your favorite WWE title belt design? Any era? The one that's hanging over Jason's shoulder right there on the wall.
That's it. There it is.
Sam Lother with a $7.99. Little to no censorship watching from Australia. Can't imagine putting up with that shit. Well, lucky you. And in New York here, we are not that fortunate. Mr. Team Bring It with a $4.99. Take 100 chops from Gunther or one Rikishi Stinkface. Jeez. I'm going to Stinkface.
I'm going to Stinkface because you didn't say anything about wearing a giant sack on my head. So yeah, I'm going to wear a mask or a sack.
I don't want to take any chops from Gunther.
No, let alone 100 of them. Yeah, I'll take like a giant potato sack and I'll put it over my head, and then he can do whatever he wants. Well, not anything he wants, but he can give me a Stinkface.
Captain Solo with a $5 super chat. JD hates bugs, so here's a question. You're trapped in a room full of bugs. Which do you choose? Room of big spiders, scorpions, or monster you're giving me a fucking creep just even answering the question. What do I do, Jason?
Well, what was the third one? I didn't hear the third one.
Big spiders, scorpions, or monster centipedes?
Oh. Centipedes have what, like the 8 legs, right?
Yeah.
Ugh. Spiders, scorpions. Well, scorpions will kill you. So not scorpions. You know what? I'd probably go with the spiders. I don't like spiders either, but
out of the three, I go spiders. Yeah.
I'd probably die of a heart attack anyways. It wouldn't matter. I would just keel over and just crawl all over me anyway.
Thank you, Captain Solo. Who you calling Pinhead with a 499? JD, would you rather watch Kali versus Solo in a Punjabi prison match or Solo versus Goldberg in a scaffold match?
Yeah, okay, so I do my Be the Booker segment. I'm in it. And those are two matches that I've actually landed on before. Me against the Great Khali in a Punjabi prison match, and then me and Goldberg, which is just ridiculous. But imagine Goldberg in a scaffold match. I mean, that's just, comical. So, yeah, it's just weird.
I'm going Khali.
You're going Khali?
Yeah.
Really? You actually think that would be more entertaining than watching him throw me off the top of the scaffold?
Yes, I would find that to be entertaining.
The Punjabi prison, though, so it's almost like a cage in a cage, right? Because I remember the Batista one, and there's the first cage, and then you can jump from that one to the outer one, and then climb out that one, right? Yeah. Okay. And it's all made of bamboo.
Yeah.
I'm afraid of heights, so that would be interesting. But then again, I guess a scaffold match, I'm afraid of heights, so I'm fucked either way.
Thank you, Captain Solo. Thank you, Pinhead. Billy with the 23 months. Happy 4th of July, fellas, and God bless America. Absolutely, brother. Thank you for being with us. Alex with a $10 super chat. Brother JD and Solo, can you see the Cody and Orton feud beginning right after SummerSlam and lead to multiple pay-per-view matches starting in Bash in Berlin and Bad Blood and culminate at Crown Jewel? Much love. Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. I think that's going to be the last feud before Cody gets into the Rumble and starts his WrestleMania season for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. And I think they do Orton and Owens first once Orton just sort of snaps.
Yeah.
But then coming out of SummerSlam, I mean, whether it's Berlin and then, again, we don't know if they'll add a show in September. Right now there is none. There's Bad Blood probably in October. Then we get to Survivor Series and we assume War Games, but that may just be Bloodline only. So we'll see how many matches they can get out of it, but I think that could be the fall feud that takes them to the end of the year.
M. Mills with no message and a $10 super chat. Thank you, M. Mills.
M. Mills. Thank you, Brady.
Phil with a $4.99. Do you want more Uncle Howdy interviews with the other members? I certainly wouldn't mind it. Give them all the platform to share why they joined. Well, I thought that was going to happen last night, but we got double parter of Bo Dallas, which was great. But I do want to hear from the other members, yes.
Yeah, I want them to flesh out their characters a little bit more, and I think these videos are a very effective way of doing that.
David Thiering with a $10 super chat. Hey, JD, just for a laugh, I got to ask Solo, have you recovered from Friday's Be the Booker main event between Goldberg and him in a scaffold match? I'm still laughing my ass off. Have a good night, guys.
Yeah, this was quite the segment, I will say. It's just people trying to visualize this absurdity in their head. Goldberg and anybody, it's just a death wish. So, yes, I've recovered. They want me to do it in 2K24. That's one of the reasons I quit playing, is because I got stuck on Goldberg in the Performance Center, and I was like, fuck this. I played this 10 times. I couldn't beat this guy, no matter what I did. I couldn't even move to a different story in the game. I was stuck on him. He's wrestling me in a pair of just gym shorts and a tank top at the PC. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing here? And that was the end. I just quit. I rage quit. That was the end. I haven't gone back to it since.
Yeah, that's why I stopped those games too. It's you get stuck at that point where it's fucking shit. The computer's just unbeatable, and it's just, you don't even want to play anymore. It sucks the fun out.
Yeah, and you can't get around it. You can't pick a different side, a side mission or anything like that. You're just stuck. It's how the hell with this?
Boots with a $2 super chat. Didn't Dexter Lumis walk away from his family, or did they walk away from him?
Yeah, maybe they walked away from him. He just sort of disappeared.
Mario's with a $1.99. AEW placating Nabagoga when will TK learn JD enough? I don't know what the fuck this. I don't know. It's I don't know.
I think he may have had a stroke in the middle of donating. I hope he's okay.
Captain Solo on a $5 super chat. Question for you both: would you rather take a stink face from Nia Jax or Piper Niven?
Well, you got a very interesting group of people here.
I don't know.
You don't claim them?
No. No, I don't know. Do I have a third choice? Can I take a shot from Gunther instead, please? I'll take one. And the learning sicko, Dr. Bropio, with a $5 super chat. Kind of hilarious. We are doing a better job getting Jericho's gimmick over than Jericho himself. Thanks, guys, and bye, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, at least we can get something out of it. Because I'm sure shit not getting anything out of it watching it on TV every week.
No. That is the last of the super chats, guys. Thank you for all of your generosity. And thank you for hanging out with us on this episode 55. As always, I'll leave the Solid Monster to sound us off here. What do you got, brother?
Just want to wish everybody a happy and safe 4th of July, wherever you may be. If you're barbecuing, if you're setting off fireworks, please be safe. Don't blow your hand off. The story in the news here, someone set off some fireworks the other night and blew off 4 fingers.
Oh, my God.
Don't be that guy. Yeah, don't be that guy. So whatever you're doing, if you're hanging out with friends and family, have fun and enjoy the 4th.
It's going to be a beautiful 4th, guys. Make sure if you're in the sun and you're drinking some nice adult cold beverages, please stay hydrated. Because I know I tend to forget to do that. And just keep that in mind. And enjoy yourself. David Deering with a last $5 super chat here. Thank you, brother. He says, Solid Monster, don't jump the gun saying this chat is weird when we haven't seen a Demeter Bullion super chat yet. Oh, my goodness.
That's right. He's got a point.
Yeah, he might have fell asleep, David. Thank you, brother. And thank you, guys, for all your support. Catch us live tomorrow night for AEW Dynamite on our respective channels, and then right back here next Tuesday for Tuesday Night Titans episode 56, guys. Have a good night. We'll see you next week.